There's only one way to wake up in the morning.
How the heck are you?
Yep, that's it. Miller
I drove, which made me happier. I didn't let anybody else behind the wheel of the car.
and Moulton.
Look at you. I'm the man of the house.
Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio. Broadcasting live from the Kobe Cooling Remote Studios, where it's always cool and comfortable.
Oh, I like
It's up to you now. It's up to you.
I like it.
Now, the best local sports show this town has ever heard. Here's Miller and Moulton.
You're live.
How the heck are you? Miller and Moulton on this Thursday morning. Thanks so much for being with us. Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio. We stream this show, millerandmoulton.com. We're broadcasting live every day on the Miller and Moulton YouTube and twitch.tv channels. Big announcement coming up for us and twitch.tv. You can join the show via the Williamson Brothers Marine and Roofing text and talk line 479-5551, 479-5551. Top of the morning to you, Mark. How are you?
Topo, David, I'm very well. Yourself?
You know what? I'm doing well. I'm sleeping better.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's good. Someone asked yesterday in the Twitch chat room, and you didn't see it. It wasn't for not looking, but I know on your phone sometimes you don't get everything. Someone kind of just asked during the break, and I really haven't, so I'll ask the question. Seems like you've been feeling better.
You know, a week off can do everybody good. And so even my wife's like, boy, you know, you've been robust. You know, it's been hearty. And I'm like, well, I enjoy doing the show. I don't know what to tell you. I mean, when the show's done, I forget about it immediately. But I just enjoy doing the show. As we have joked, it beats working for a living.
No, I got you, and I wasn't even referring to that. But, you know, you did have this thing called cancer.
Right.
And people are concerned. And you look better. You look, you know, I'll put it this way. When we first came back, the first week we should not have been on the air. You were not physically ready.
Come on now. Just suck it up, Mark.
Oh, I was fine. I was fine. But by 8 o'clock, when you're groaning every commercial break, I know you're not feeling all that well.
Yeah, the sitting was not good. I needed to walk. It was a weird feeling. I had to walk the show off while still doing the show.
And some of us have to walk something off every once in a while when you're at a busy airport and the stalls are full. But you were walking the show off.
Right.
And so by week 2, you were walking a little less. And it's
right.
We've been at this again a while from that brief hiatus when, you know, you had a kidney removed.
But you know.
So all in all, you look better. You look healthier. I've not seen you. You're locked in quarantine somewhere in a bunker in Fort Myers. You're not afraid to admit that you're in your bunker. You've been in your bunker.
Been here since mid-March.
Right.
Absolutely. Right around St. Patrick's Day. I stopped seeing Western civilization as we know it. Absolutely. Mm-hmm.
So that's all. I think, you know.
Still can't get near my wife, though.
Well, I don't.
All right, just can't get near
one
her.
kidney, two kidneys. Not much seems to have changed.
Right. She's so close. She's so close. I can almost reach out and touch her. Still can't get near her, though. I feel like the boy, you know, in the bubble. I feel like Travolta in the late 70s.
Oh, God, what a horrible movie. And we've all seen it, and we've all seen it dozens of times because it's back when HBO was the only choice you had in the summer, and it was on a lot. That and One-on-One with Robbie Benson. We all know those movies very well, and we don't have a choice. We have no say-so.
Terrible.
Right.
It was also terrible.
10 a.m.
Saw it about 8 times.
10 a.m. on HBO. They always ran the movie at 10 a.m.,
right.
And that's one of the ones that was on regularly. You know, David, it was fun yesterday, and we'll get to a lot of football. We have a lot of football to talk about.
Can I just finish? You asked the question.
Oh,
all right.
Yeah.
I'm about 90%. For those that want to know, and they're friends reach out. How you doing? I'm 90%.
Good.
Back exercising the way that I was before. What happened.
So you can run all the way to McDonald's and back,
huh? Not fast, but I can get there. And I am missing my fast food runs. Oh my goodness. I am starting to shake a little bit. The few times that I'm out running errands, like I had to go get keys made yesterday, and there was a Wendy's right by the place where I was going, and I was having a conversation with the drive-through from the Home Depot parking lot. I was just gazing over at it going, I remember when we were friends. We were close friends. I used to know what number was what. I used to know the price. I had exact change figured out, tax and all,
Before I ordered.
Before I ordered. And now I don't even know you anymore. Right. It's been 3 months. I mean, 3 months.
3 months
I've
for
never
fast
gone this
food,
long.
3 months with no pizza.
I've never, no. We had one.
Good.
My wife, about a month ago, looked at me and said, "Listen, I know you're going through what you're going through, and I haven't had any pizza since you went into the hospital. But if I don't have any pizza, something, bad.
Good for you.
Here." So she got pizza, and then I waited till she was done, and she said, "Well, you're allowed to have it in moderation." And I go, "Well, honey, your definition of moderation and my definition are different. See, my definition of moderation is if I eat the 4 slices that are left moderately slowly. That's moderation. If I inhale them, that's not good."
I was going to say moderation for me is having 2 and then waiting till everybody goes to bed to eat the other 2 pieces.
Right. Having 2, sipping a drink, and then having the other 2. That to me is moderation.
Right.
Right.
David,
So
I have
I'm
to
about
ask you,
90%.
your daughter's obviously a lot older than my daughter, married now, out of the house. But
Right.
I have to ask you a question because my wife's out of town for a few days and I'm in charge. And my daughter and I get along much the same way you and your daughter did. It's a terrific relationship. It's definitely daddy's little girl. But my daughter's food of choice is anything wrapped in a tortilla.
Okay.
And last night she wanted tacos, so I was going to make them. But the gas station sells 10 soft tacos for like $7.80.
You do love your gas station tacos.
It's phenomenal. I'm scared walking in there. Everybody's masked up. I mean, nobody's masked up, meaning, I mask up and put a hazmat suit on to go in the gas station.
But hey, the price you got to pay for 10-cent tacos.
They're so good. And usually I get the carnitas and the barbacoa and the stuff that's a little bit more authentic. But they have the good old-fashioned, essentially the Taco Bell soft taco.
Okay.
And you're talking 10 of these suckers for
Wow.
78 cents a piece, basically, or
Wow.
$7.80.
Man.
2 boxes of 5. And I know the daughter's hungry. So do you want 2, honey? She goes, yeah, I want 2. So I just brought the styrofoam container with the other 3, and they were gone.
There you go.
And she's halfway through number 1 and looks over and goes, what happened to the rest of those tacos? I said, Daddy had them.
I don't know.
And then I waited. And I wanted, this is where I need your advice because I basically am her garbage disposal. Whatever
Right.
she can't eat,
Right.
I eat.
You're the family dog.
Yes.
Yes.
And as she's midway through taco number 2, I'm wondering if she's going to finish. So I open the other box and knock down my 4th and then politely wait to see if I'm getting 4.5 or if I have to go
Right.
for 5. Is
Right.
that anything that sounds familiar in your life?
Absolutely. There's nothing wrong with that. In fact, I don't know about you because, your wife is in good shape and is skinny. My wife is in good shape and skinny. They don't eat a ton. Okay. We've all been with people who eat more. Our wives eat a little less. And so I don't know about you, but there are certain things that we order in which I know when she orders it, oh, I'm getting one of those.
Yes.
What'd you order 3 of those for? There's no way you're eating 3 of those.
Absolutely.
And so then you adjust your order accordingly. And by adjust your order, you don't change it at all. You just look at it as more for me.
100%. And my wife has let me know in the last few months that I basically try something on her plate, whether she likes it or not. That I have kind of looked at both plates as mine.
Oh, you're one of those.
Me?
You're one of those.
Yeah, well, I've shifted it. Now I just do it to my daughter. She doesn't care. She actually looks at it as helpful because if I get a couple of bites off her plate, it's less she has to eat.
Well, see, I think you're allowed to do it to someone you outrank.
I don't outrank my wife.
Well, exactly.
Not even close.
That's why I think it's okay. I mean, so while you're still providing the shelter and paying the bills and providing the food and what have you, you still outrank your daughter. All right. So to me, I think then you're allowed, what's on her plate. Okay. You're allowed to pick at her plate. It drives me nuts when my wife picks at my plate.
It drives my wife nuts when I pick at her plate.
Absolutely. I look at her like, hey, you got your own. What are you doing? Well, we share everything.
Thank you.
Not food.
Thank you.
No. I look right at her and go, no. I mean, it doesn't make any sense, Mark, to say, I'll share my money with you, but I will not share my French fries. No. No, sir. No, ma'am. Not happening. So you're one of those, huh? Yeah, I'd hold a grudge if I was your wife. I would. I'd give you that look, too.
She does.
I would. Back to the you're the garbage disposal, you're the family dog. This is how I knew I had a problem. First sign, I was going through life just fine.
This is how I knew I had a problem.
This is the moment when I knew I had a problem. All right. I was going through life just fine. I was approaching 50 and I was eating everything that wasn't nailed down and I was fine with it. I was. And then I began to notice that my mother-in-law, if we were out, and it didn't matter if it was just the three of us, the wife, myself, and my mother-in-law, or if by chance the brother-in-law or even others were out, that every single meal, all right, if someone was done, that my mother-in-law would go, David, do you want to finish this? And I picked up on it like the third straight time that she did it at a meal. And I realized, man, she treats me like the family dog. I mean, she's doing everything but taking the plate and putting it down on the ground.
Yeah, she didn't scrape it on your plate. That's about the only thing she didn't do.
Right. I mean, but that's when I realized, so that's my role in this family, huh?
Wow. I have to be frank with you, David. My mood took a hit right there.
I realized, wow.
Because you just described me in this house.
There you go. Okay. Sorry to break the news to you.
Yeah, they'll set plates in front of me, David.
Yes, they will.
My wife will just say, you want the rest? And just not even, it's an ask hand.
They don't even ask you.
It's an ask hand. Hey, you want the rest of this as the plate's landing in front of you.
Right. They look at the people whose food it is and go, are you done with this? And when they go, no, they take the plate and they put it in front of you. They don't even ask. It's like that old Life cereal.
Yeah. Mikey will eat. Let Michael try it.
He eats everything.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah. And by the way, I wasn't offended. It was just an observation. I mean, that's all. I didn't ask for anything to change. It was just me coming to the realization, wow, you might have a problem if that's how they view you.
Yeah, that's where I'm at right now.
If you're the trash compactor of the family, you may want to change your behavior. Now, I didn't change my behavior. I continued on for the next handful of years. And as far as I was concerned, I was doing just fine. All right. My body and cancer and what have you told me differently. Whatever. All right. We're still negotiating. Hey, one of these days, the insurance company will let me have a scan and maybe I'll find out if I still have cancer or not.
It's not necessary, David.
So when you ask me how I'm doing, I say, well, I'm doing as well as the insurance company will let me. How about that?
There it is. Healthcare in 2020 for those of you paying your own way.
That's right.
Those of you that aren't, you don't necessarily experience these things until you get sick. Then you will.
Give us a call. 479-5551. 479-5551. The Williams and Brothers Marine and Roofing text and talk line. Keep it handy, okay, for when the medical emergency comes your way.
I was called a vulture on the Williams and Brothers Marine talk and text line.
Whatever. Vulture, family dog, trash compactor, whatever.
Well, and that's the problem. I'm married to a veterinarian. Table scraps do not go to the dog in our house. That's against the rules. So where are they going to go?
Seriously. Why is that?
Because they get pancreatitis and they get sick and it costs money.
Whatever.
Right. You know what? Keep getting bulldogs. You'll keep my wife employed.
Yes. Yes. Oh,
Those things shouldn't even exist
Mark,
other than to make veterinarians rich.
Mark, I don't know. I don't know if it's possible, but we've given so much money to our vet
Oh, I know.
that I think I think just pass it around to other agencies because they're like, you know what, we have too much. We have too damn much. Hey, do you guys have a Moulton Bulldog? And no, in your lineup, you don't? Oh, well, then here's a little something for the effort. Right. Oh, yeah. My goodness. My good. By the way, apparently they reach a certain age in which they want your chair. That's the other thing that's happened. Not only can I get near my wife, now the bulldog comes over to me and barks when I'm sitting in my chair until I get up so that she can have the chair.
And
right? So now
you get up for the dog?
Well, Mark, after 5 minutes of barking, it's either kill the dog or get out of the chair. So I get out of the chair. Wow. All right. When the wife lets me get rid of the dog, then I'll get rid of the dog. Since that's never going to happen, I get out of the chair.
No, all you'll be allowed to do.
Room.
I
go to the other room. I do. I look at my wife and I go, well, I hope you're happy. I hope you like your roommate. She goes, I love my roommate. Of course you do. I go into the other room and I watch hockey. You know why? Because it's on at 11 in the morning and it goes until 1 in the morning. Danielson texted me yesterday. You still watching hockey? I go, yeah, double overtime. Bruins in Carolina. He goes, man, you're a piece of work.
I was so fired up about that. I will try throughout these playoffs to not make it necessary to let everybody know just how bad Mike Milbury is, but he's awful. He brings zero energy to it. I mean, that was a really good game yesterday, David. You got John Forsland, who's a
He was tired. I don't know what to tell you. He was
tired. He was done at 9 o'clock at night.
I don't know what to tell you.
He was done
tired.
at 9 at night. Quit defending that shoe hitter. His claim to fame is hitting someone with a damn shoe.
I'm not defending him. I'm just saying he was tired, all right?
He is tired. That's the perfect word to describe Mike Milbury. He's tired.
He is. But Mark, I'm guessing he didn't just go straight to the hotel room. That's all. I'm just guessing he stopped at the bar beforehand. That's all. That's why he was tired. 6.5 hour hockey game, couple of drinks afterwards, bada bing, bada boom. All of a sudden, 11 a.m., all right, Bruins in Carolina, and he had all the energy of a commercial break. He did.
No, commercial breaks have energy. I mean, they get
Some
louder. They're louder than the actual show most of the time, David.
You know what? It's a dadgum good point, Mark.
So, regardless, he's terrible and brought nothing to what was a really good hockey game. That is, he tried to say that the goal that counted for Boston shouldn't have, but still couldn't make really a definitive comment on anything since he is the analyst after all. I mean, that's his job.
He kind of looked at yesterday as I'm an observer.
Boy, did he ever. But a really good hockey game, and it made me laugh because he was so upset about 5 overtimes that they gave him 2 overtimes for the game to get things going yesterday. I was loving it.
I was so angry when Boston scored early in the second overtime because I was rooting for a minimum of 4 just for Milbury.
You and me both.
Oh, my goodness. By the third overtime, he will be so miserable.
He might quit. That was the only thing I was hoping for. He'd walk off while on air.
I thought there was a chance he was going to go euchre all hammered in Major League. That's if we could have just stretched that game out another half hour. Man, oh man. But I also laugh because first game of the day, they're on a schedule. I mean, if you AAU or you got Pee Wees or Babe Ruth Little League, whatever, and you got a schedule and you're already backed up. Day one, you got to move a game because you couldn't finish it, and so now you're playing 5 games instead of 4. You got
3 in one barn.
Right, that first game's got to go quick. And what happened? The first game's going overtime, and then it's going 2 overtimes. And I'm laughing. I'm going because NBC. Listen, I know 4 of you watch this. Okay, but.
More than that, it was the Bruins.
Okay,
a lot of Bostonians down here.
That's true. 13 of you were watching.
There you go.
So there's a pecking order at all the networks. But an 11 a.m. start, you got to see on NBC's ladder who's at the bottom of the pecking order. I mean, they had a guy working the desk. Honestly, I've never seen before. I watch hockey all the time. I've never seen this guy on NBC before because it was 11 a.m. And this was Catherine Tappan and Liam McHugh going, I ain't going in for 11 a.m. No way. And so this guy's on the anchor desk, and I'm laughing because you know that everybody else is showing up and they're waiting in the green room, and they can't come on the set because this game's going double overtime. I'm like, the teams are backed up in the arena. I mean, I'm just envisioning what youth sports is like, and I'm like, this is spectacular. This is happening at the NHL level with network announcers and actual teams. And they're like, man, are we ever going to get these games in? Who's going to do the ice? I'm loving it. Love it. We're 2 days into the quote-unquote playoffs. Spectacular.
It is really great because it has the same intensity. All you had to do was watch Washington play the New York Islanders yesterday, and you found out really quickly that these guys are right in playoff mode because there was 2 fights in the first 6 minutes of the game.
Yeah,
it was flat out hatred. And it's the Islanders and the Capitals. Who the hell knew? I mean, there was a time, David, back in the 80s that the Islanders, beat the Capitals every year on their way to win Stanley Cups, and you went, oh, okay. But this isn't, when you think of rivalries in sports, this doesn't even it would never even be brought up. No, and these 2 teams yesterday went after each other.
We say it all the time. Hate is good in sports. It's not good anywhere else, but it's really good in sports. And when there are 2 teams, as you pointed out, Mark, that most people would not think of as not liking one another, like in the NFC South. I mean, if you talk to NFL fans, do you think most fans understand how much the Buccaneers and Panthers don't like each other? They know about the Saints and the Falcons in that division. They don't understand that over time, because of the just unique personalities that have maybe played for both teams or where both franchises have been at different times, those teams do not like each other. And when you come to the Panthers and when you come to the Bucks, somebody in that locker room goes, just so you know, we hate these blankety blanks. You need to understand that. Okay?
It's easy when you go play for
this is who we hate.
Sorry, David. It's easy when you go to play for a certain franchise. You go to play for the Ravens or the Steelers. No one has to tell you that you hate the other guy.
Right. Bears.
Bears, Packers. Right. Right.
But when you go to the Bucks or Panthers, somebody in the room goes, just so you know, we'd play these guys for free in a parking lot.
Hell, the cheerleaders would play each other in a powder puff game for free in a parking lot.
Yeah, that goes back. Right. That goes back when Ron Rivera and somebody else was still coach. But yes, there was a time, Mark,
when even the cheerleaders hated each other in this matchup.
That's when you know you've got a rivalry, when the cheerleaders are fighting before the game. But yes, these 2 teams don't like one another. There's 5+ years of history with the current makeup of those 2 rosters, and it's nice to see, even with no fans, all right, that the hatred still exists. And in the pregame skate, you look over and go, yeah, I still hate you. Still hate you. 11 a.m., no fans in the stands. You let me know when you want to drop the gloves. It's game on.
And boy, did they ever. And everybody thought the Isle was going to get pushed around. They won. Another good day of hockey. Love these early games. 3 o'clock today, the Lightning get her rolling again.
NBA regular season coming to an end. I think it's today, maybe officially tomorrow, but today's games are the ones that determine the final playoff seeding in the West.
Right. The East is already all set.
Right. And all the matchups are basically set, Mark, for the NBA playoffs. The 4 matchups in the East are set, and really the 4 matchups in the West are set. The Lakers are just waiting to find out who emerges from the 8-9 situation. But now, after yesterday's games, the other 3 matchups are all set. So we'll update you on the NHL playoffs, the NBA regular season, Major League Baseball. Some football news. Finally, one of the free agents that we have been waiting for to signed with a team we didn't expect and for far less money than we thought he'd get. We'll tell you who and where on the other side. Miller and Moulton. How about that tease, huh? How about that?
Boy, I mean, that sounds like a guy that had a number 3 supersized last night.
Boy, one could only hope.
Miller and Moulton. Supersized for at least a decade. maybe more.
And now still supersized, even if we're not having them, on Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio.
Swing and a foul ball. To catch a foul ball. Somebody made a good catch down there. It's on every fan's bucket
Look at
list.
that. Look at that little graphic, everybody. Huh, can't even see us during the break now.
Got a good little show going on here.
I got the graphic up telling them. If you looked on Twitch right now, David, it's pretty impressive. Did some work last night. I don't know if you were still awake when the texts were going back and forth.
I saw them. They kept waking me up. I was trying to go to sleep. Bang, bang.
Why do you have sound on?
Then I love that you asked for feedback. I'm like, oh, well, here's going to be a series more of them.
You know you can silence your phone.
No, I can't. It's my alarm.
Your alarm still uses sound if your phone's on silence. Mine does. Every day.
Mine. You
know what?
As I had no. I overslept once in a hotel room because of it. So that's why it kind of buzzed. It vibrated. It didn't really go off.
All right, then you might have your settings wrong. One of these days we could.
Hey, there's a very good chance of that, Mark.
Does anybody else? You know what? We need to have one of our intermission breaks be Technology Corner with David Moulton.
Oh, my goodness. I'm hoping that we could have one of these breaks where somebody could come in and just give me 4-minute lessons. All right. This break, David, we're going to teach you about, thanks. This would be great. This would be like my online course.
Screenshots, and why they can work for you.
Right. Wait, what?
That's right. That's right. Turn it off. Turn it back on again.
Thank you. That's probably what I should.
Isn't that incredible graphic? I'm hoping everybody enjoys that.
Wow, a graphic. Yep. That is. Look at that. That looks like a real show.
Getting there, David. We had big things going on next week, apparently, I'm told.
Yes. Well, we'll find out.
We got meetings. Just so you know, Moulton and I got a meeting today.
9:30 Eastern. We got a meeting. We'll see if something's really going on or not. Or whether or not it's just more talk. We've had a lot of talk in our career.
All right. Hey, everybody in this room, I need golfers for a I got to put a fantasy golf team together in a matter of seconds here.
Well, hell, who's playing?
They all are.
Really? Week after a major?
Yeah, because it's the FedEx Cup playoffs.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
That starts already?
I think so. I thought this was week 1. Hang on,
Wow. I know it's a compressed schedule. I just didn't realize it was this compressed. Yeah, it's the Wyndham.
Why? Sorry, I can't help it. Every time I hear that, all I think of is Nancy and Tanya. And it's a Zoom meeting, David. You ready for that?
Oh, come on.
Yeah, we got an email last. It's always been a Zoom meeting.
Oh, for goodness sakes. I don't like to be seen. Just want to be heard. Man, oh man. Even though I am showered and wearing a collared shirt, but still. What's the point of it? They had a CBS Zoom meeting about 3 weeks ago. Guy asked me a question. Said, we can see everybody but you. How come we can't see you? And I said, because I don't want to press the video button.
Just opened their 8th Florida showroom, and it's convenient.
And he goes, come on, let me see you. And I go, no, it's all right.
You are something.
Well, in that case, I had just got done working out, and I was sweaty and had a T-shirt on. And it was like, no. Plus, I was lying in bed.
All right. Anybody got some golfers for this week? I know a couple of you are golf junkies. I need all your fantasy help. We got tee off in 30 minutes. I got to get this lineup in. Get to work.
This is Miller and Moulton.
You're live.
30 minutes after the hour. Miller and Moulton, Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio. Streaming, millerandmoulton.com, broadcasting live, the Miller and Moulton YouTube and Twitch.tv channels. You can sign up for them. They're free. If you have an Amazon Prime account, you get a Twitch channel for free in which you don't even get any of the advertising. So that's even a better deal for you. You're not bothered. And you get to interact with us during the breaks, like Mark asking for help with our fantasy golf team.
Yeah, I've got to get I forgot to get my lineup in. I had a great start to the PGA, ended up not making any money. Koepka screwed me.
Well,
that's all right.
Did not have a good final round.
No, you know what? It was fun to be in it. I've only been doing this for a couple of weeks. I got invited to this group, which they're just looking at me as free cash.
Oh, totally.
And it's okay.
Yeah.
And you know what? I'm enjoying giving it away right now. Because I had like $100 in a DraftKings account I'd completely forgotten about. So, David, it's like I won money when I logged in. When you log into DraftKings and you see you've got a $95 balance, it's like,
wow,
I'm up.
Hot damn. Haven't placed a bet since 2019 March Madness, but okay. All right, good. Yeah, that is the funny thing now. When you stumble, any bit of excitement and good news, it just feels like you are winning a lottery ticket. It really does. Time now for
the starting five. 5 big stories that you need to know. This is Miller and Moulton's starting five. Fox Sports Radio and FoxSportsFM.com.
In years past, this always meant something. Now, it's news for a day and, heck. The best laid plans of mice and men can disappear the very next day. But, Mark, the Big 12 seems as if it really is full speed ahead because the day after announcing, no, we're going to play, they released their schedule. Now, they have pushed the start of their season back to when the SEC is starting their season, the end of September. The final Saturday of September is when conference play would begin. They're planning on playing all their games. They have pushed their conference championship game back a week. They're now going to play the Big 12 title game, Army-Navy Saturday, second Saturday in December, December 12th. They did say they could push it back one more week. That's when the SEC has now scheduled their championship game. They moved it back 2 weeks. Oklahoma, Texas, however, remains on the same date. So Oklahoma, Texas will be one of the first conference games. I think it's week 2 of the Big 12 season will be Oklahoma, Texas.
And in Dallas, right?
Yes.
And in Dallas. I mean, the key thing about this whole schedule to me is that game is still being played in Dallas.
Well, and what's also interesting is I believe they've already canceled the state fair.
They have. But even Kansas yesterday, the state of Kansas or Kansas University announced they're going to try to get 50% capacity or 25%. I mean, they don't get 50% capacity for normal games, do they?
Oh, I was going to say that's very ambitious.
Right. I mean, they look like they're going to get an increase. They think the coronavirus has led more people to Kansas football.
I mean, the tremendous marketing slogan possibilities. Kansas football. People are dying to see it. But I digress.
Starting a little early here.
Starting a little early, yeah. NFL news, Everson Griffin. I thought Everson Griffin was going to get a 2 for 20 from somebody. I thought maybe he'd have to settle for 2 for 18.
Well, certainly he was going to get 10 if it was a 1-year deal.
Right.
I mean, the 2 for 20 I think is a stretch just because of the second year. But if he was going to get locked into a 1-year deal, I figured it had to be 10, David.
And I would have put the over-under at $8.25 million. I mean, come on, he's at least going to get that, right?
Right.
Everson, granted, he's 32 years old, but Everson Griffin's the second best defensive lineman out on the market. I mean, this is a guy who can get you 8+ sacks from the interior. He signed a 1-year, $6 million deal with the Dallas Cowboys. how in the world did the Seattle Seahawks? You mean to tell me the Vikings couldn't bring them back for $6 million? Seriously, 1 year, $6 million. This is a tremendous signing by Jerry and the boys. A tremendous signing. And an area in which they need a little help at based on last year's performance. They'd invested a little bit of money in a few guys who didn't really deliver last year. So good move by Jerry and the boys. And Jerry also announced, by the way, he's going to have fans at all his games. Jerry's like, hey, I didn't build this thing, have it sit empty. I don't care what's going on. So he didn't say how many fans, but Jerry said, oh, yeah, we're going to have fans at our games. Interesting development, Mark, yesterday in the NFL. If you remember when the NFL and the NFLPA came to an agreement 3 weeks ago, that for the first 2 weeks of camp, there would just be conditioning,
Right.
and they would be tested for COVID every day. If the positivity rate was under 5%, then they would start staggering the testing.
Correct.
Maybe every other day, every third day, whatever the case may be. When you think about that, that's kind of silly, right? I mean, this is a pandemic. You should treat it seriously, and you have the money. Why not test every day, right? I mean, if you're going to test every day, especially when a guy can be negative, positive. The incubation period's 14 days. You don't know when someone's going to test positive. Okay. Well, here's the good news. The positivity rate amongst NFL players right now, under 1%. Now, do the math. You've had 90, so whether it's 80 to 90 per team times 32, do the math. You're talking about roughly 2,500 players here. Positivity rate under 1%. And they decided, you know what? We're not going to get in the way of a good thing here. We're going to keep testing every day until September 5th.
I think that that's smart. I think that the COVID list they've had, that doesn't mean that someone has COVID, has at least made them understand that they're not in a bubble right now. They're not going to be in a bubble. So it seems to be the wisest move to continue to test a lot.
I forget who we were talking to yesterday, and you wondered, would teams on their own, maybe it's when we were talking to Pat on Tuesday, and we wondered, would teams on their own maybe create their own bubble? And we know that the Saints have already done it, that Breeze and the boys have basically, they went to management, and they have taken over a hotel
right
in New Orleans. There's no one else allowed in the hotel except New Orleans Saints. And they're going to try to do this for as long as they can. Well, apparently the Cowboys have gotten together, and they're starting to do the same thing, which I take as a very good sign if I'm a Cowboys fan. Because I don't want to say that the Cowboys have been 53 guys, 53 different taxis, but I've not thought that the Cowboys were all in under Jason Garrett. I just didn't. That's a good sign. At least it would be to me if I'm a Cowboys fan. NHL, Bruins in double overtime, beat Carolina 4-3. Islanders with a 3-goal third, beat Washington 4-2. Colorado with a 3-goal third, beat Arizona 3-0.
I realized that I hate the Washington Capitals, David. Because
Why?
I don't like them. I've never liked the Capitals. I liked when they lost, when they weren't good. I like and hate Ovechkin at the same time. I love his talent. I love his talent, but he annoys the ever-living you-know-what out of me.
I don't know why. Because he hits people. You hate Russian hockey players because they just skate around and they don't hit anybody. Ovechkin's the one Russian who pounds people.
I know, but he's way more of an individual in a team sport than I tend to like.
No, he is not.
Okay. But I found myself in the third period, and I don't like the Islanders either. The games, my daughter said, who are you rooting for? I said, I really don't like either team.
Overtime.
She goes, why are you watching? I said, because it's playoff hockey, honey.
Right.
And she goes, okay. And it's great because she's 6. And she goes, she just looked at the, she goes, is that team Washington? And I said, well, yes, it is. She said, in Washington, D.C.? Yes, it is. She goes, well, I'm rooting for them. Okay. Now I'm rooting for the Islanders, I guess. But as the game went on, I really enjoyed the Islanders winning that.
I was rooting for overtime. I have to admit, I'm not a fan of either team. I was just rooting for overtime.
It's a great. Looks like it's going to be a great series, though. For two teams that I don't really like, we mentioned this in the open. They went at it yesterday. If you're on the fence about hockey or you want to jump in, I'm telling you right now, watch Game 2 of this series and watch Game 2 of Montreal-Philadelphia, because those games started getting nasty.
Philly beat Montreal 2-1 yesterday. Flyers have a goalie, folks, and if the Flyers had had a goalie in the last 30 years, they'd probably have about 3 or 4 Stanley Cups.
And Carey Price is great.
Yeah, he's really good. He's 33 this weekend,
and he's great.
Really the St. Louis Blues are not. Ever since hockey started back up here, they haven't won a game. They went 0-3 in the preliminary round, and now game 1 of their series against Vancouver, they give up 3 in the third and lost 5-2. Lightning back in action. We'll see how much rest the two teams were able to get after playing the 4th longest game in NHL history. 3 o'clock today, Lightning and Blue Jackets, game 2 of their series. NBA playoff seedings are all set. In the East, here are the matchups. Milwaukee, Orlando, 1-8. Toronto, Brooklyn, 2-7. Boston and Philly in a 3-6 matchup. Boy, you could have a house cleaning in Philadelphia. You could see the coach get fired. You could see Ben Simmons traded. Apparently, Cleveland wants him. And I think at this point, Sixer fans are like, take him. And Simmons is hurt, likely out for the rest of the playoffs. Heat Pacers. And, that's another one. We were talking about Carolina and Tampa Bay in the NFL, two teams that don't like one another. Okay. Miami Heat fans know this. Pacers fans really know this. Rest of the NBA doesn't understand how much the Heat and Pacers don't like each other. Remember, they played in the playoffs like 3 years in a row when LeBron and company were together, and Pacers gave them 2 really
good series. Really good series. You're right.
Do not like one another. And there are just enough people that are still around on each side. Heat and Pacers in a 4-5 matchup. Out west, the 2-7 matchup would be the Clippers and the Mavs. The 3-6 is Denver and Utah. I'll tell you what, I really like Denver, but that's a tough first-round matchup. And Oklahoma City, Houston is the 4-5 series. Lakers will face the winner of the 8-9. Here's what you need to know today, because all 4 of these teams are playing, and they're separated by a half a game. Portland is the 8. Memphis, Phoenix, and San Antonio are all tied for 9, a half a game back. But Memphis owns the tiebreaker. So if Portland and Memphis win, they're in. If either one of them loses and Phoenix wins, the Suns are in. If by chance chaos ensues, Popovich and the Spurs have a chance to extend their continuous playoff run, which is, I think, 22 years and counting. Major League Baseball. The Cardinals are still not playing, just so you know. They've played 5 games on the season. They were supposed to play a doubleheader today against the Tigers. Yeah, that's postponed. Cardinals are scheduled to play Friday, for the record. Their 6th game of the year. The season is 3 weeks old. They've played 5 games.
Hope you had the under.
Cubs are playing and winning 7-2 over Cleveland. The Marlins are 8-4.
First place, Florida Marlins.
Yes.
Miami Marlins. Sorry.
14-11. You know what? That's a CFL score, right? Miami over Toronto in a CFL game played in Buffalo.
It was 14-10, and then they got that 1-pointer for is that the punt going in the end zone or whatever?
Is that Australian rules football?
No, there's a 1-point play in Canadian football.
Yes, I think if you don't get it out of the end zone, you get tackled.
If you don't return a punt or something like that.
Yankees double up the Braves 6-3. Twins over the Brewers 12-2. Rays beat the Red Sox 9-5. Daniel Vogelbach, 2-run homer for Seattle yesterday, his 2nd of the year. Mariners lost to Texas 7-4.
If you don't know, he's the pride of Bishop Verot High School.
He is. No patrons at the Masters. I said patrons because that's what they call it. The rest of us would say there's no fans, there's no crowd, no spectators.
Yeah, you came right at me yesterday.
Yes.
I saw that. I got the notification, and I basically just copied and pasted it to the two of you. And you attacked me. It was an unsolicited attack.
Muffy, no patrons at the Masters this year. Or as you tweeted out, or text me, no patrons at Augusta. All right. And I said no fans, no crowd, no spectators either. Speaking of golf,
I'd like a media pass there one day. Apparently, you seem to be able to understand. You get yours.
All right, I'll make a call next year. I don't know if I'm. I've said no now 2 years, 3 years in a row.
I want one for me though. I don't want that. The CBS one does me no good.
Oh yeah, you want to be able to sit in that brand new building.
No, I want to be able to put my name in to play on Monday. That's the.
Oh yeah. Gotcha.
Hey, it's my dream in life is to play that golf course, David. And the only way I have a shot is to get a media badge. Right. That's what I want. You want something? If you could do anything for me, David, it would be a media badge for Augusta. I would be forever in your debt.
For those that don't know, if you get a media badge and then they just do a blind draw, they allow X number of members of the media to play Augusta the day after the Masters. It's a blind draw. And so you bring your clubs hoping you get tapped on the shoulder, and a few of you get tapped on the shoulder and you get to play. That's what Mark is looking for. The FGCU duo that made the U.S. Amateur and made the match play portion of the U.S. Amateur split yesterday. Frankie Cappan was a 2-1 winner, and Van Holmgren was a 3-2 loser to the 5 seed. So a remarkable accomplishment by those two, and one of those golfers is still around in the round of 32. You win one more of these matches and you get to the round of 16, you actually start thinking about winning the damn thing. So at 13 minutes before the hour mark, that is
the starting five. 5 big stories that you need to know. This is Miller and Moulton starting 5. Fox Sports Radio and FoxSportsFM.com.
The starting 5 brought to you by Schaefer. Schaefer, the one beer to have when you're having more than one.
Miller and Moulton. We'll figure out a poll question and come back and tell you what it is once we know what it is, because that's how we do it on Miller and Moulton, Fox Sports Radio, streaming at millerandmoulton.com, and you are looking live at our new graphic on twitch.tv.
Welcome to the program.
This is the
Boom! My graphic.
Aaron Rodgers talked about the Packers drafting his successor, Jordan Love.
Was I bummed out? Of course. I got a text from my agent. He just texted quarterback.
Although it doesn't sound like he was even watching the draft because his agent quarterback without any context.
The Dan Patrick Show, weekdays at 9 a.m. on Southwest Florida.
All right, what do you got, David? Any thoughts?
The FHSAA is going to vote tomorrow.
Yeah.
About high school football.
I did see that. I think someone tweeted, it might have been even Clay Travis, but someone sent it to me. Roger Stone is going to be at Seed to Table Market signing autographs. Well, that is fantastic.
Yeah, because I guess he's doing a sit-down with the guy from Dave Elias from NBC2.
I wish I'd have known. If I'd have done anything to get Rod. I love him. Ever since the circus, he cracked me up, man.
Oh, I know. He was great on the circus.
He was great. I think it comes back Sunday, by the way.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Iowa and Iowa can't play football.
Iowa State can.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
What do you want to go with the FA? Do you think that they will move forward? What's your hunch on what they do? Because I think they'll play, and I don't know how 6 people care, but.
Okay, well then we don't do a poll question if only 6 people care.
Well, I don't know. Maybe more do. I don't think high school. I think it needs to be something, along the lines of, can the Big Ten recover? How long will it take the Big Ten to recover if the ACC, SEC, and Big 12 complete their seasons?
You want to ask, in honor of Mike Oresco, you want to ask an AAC question? Okay. With no Big Ten and Pac-12, can the AAC, and we put in parentheses UCF, make the playoff this year? Or would you, with no Big Ten or Pac-12 football,
there you go. That's how you phrase it.
Would you put the AAC champion in the playoff?
I love it. Hang on, I might have to ask you that again.
To request your vote by mail ballot to enjoy the convenience of Find an early voting location near you. Find early voting dates, times, and locations at colliervotes.com. That's colliervotes.com. Avoid the lines on Election Day by voting by mail or at an early voting location near you.
Let's face it, these are stressful times. New routines, the constant bombardment of bad news, and trying to keep you and your family safe all the time. It's Frank for Center for Men's Health. During these stressful times, your mood is so critical, and nothing's more important to
With no Pac-12 and Big Ten football this year.
Yeah, no Pac-12/Big Ten football this year.
Should the AAC champ get into the CFP playoff, right?
Most can't believe how much their mood improves
Yeah.
once they get treated. And everything improves once your mood improves. Fields
And
is
you
the
can
friend
put,
of
if you want, next to AAC, you can put in parentheses UCF.
patient of C4MH.com for a couple of years, and recently I've lost 20 pounds because now I have the energy to work out from home. And that'll put you in a good mood too. C4MH.com.
Because I'm inclined to put them in. I am. I'm inclined just to be, you know what, we got 4 major conferences.
Find out more. Go to C4MH.com.
Can I
The
put
other thing
can I
is-
put yes, never?
All right, now we're
Yeah, you could yes, no, never. How about yes, no, and never?
Is Miller and Moulton. You're live.
8 minutes before the hour. Miller and Moulton, Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio, streaming at millerandmoulton.com, broadcasting live on the Miller and Moulton YouTube and Twitch.tv channels. Mike Oresco, the commissioner of the AAC, scheduled to join us in a little more than an hour. Bobby Carpenter, former Ohio State Buckeye, he'll join us at 7:30 Eastern. And Gary Sharp, who spent some time in the 239 and is crushing it back in Omaha, Nebraska, one of the best sports radio talents in the business. He will join us coming up at 8:30. So we got a good little show lined up for you here on Miller and Moulton. Thanks for listening.
Time now for our poll question brought to you by The Reef. The Reef in Fort Myers Beach, your home for live music. Yesterday's poll question was, do you think the NCAA will allow players from the Big Ten and the Pac-12 to transfer and be immediately eligible to play this year for teams playing football? And 57% of you said no. I do like our buddy David Grant was one of the first to comment. He said that would irreversibly harm college athletics in so many ways. I voted no on this. I'd never in a million years think that the NCAA will do something like that. I think it would create so many problems on so many levels. The recruiting effects that this is going to have on the Big Ten, they may be irreversible anyhow. And if you let everybody get up and walk out, one, the gray shirt factor, I don't like how that would work out, David. And two, I don't think you could dismantle that many programs up north.
Well, first off, I don't think it would be as many players as you think because they'd have to have places to go. Okay, remember, there's already 4 of the 10 conferences that aren't playing. So, and if you're leaving your conference, so basically you only have half of the places to go to. And then they have to have scholarships available. And very few are walking around going, well, I've only used an 80 of my 85 scholarships this year. Now, I will say this, Kansas has the scholarships because Kansas has been fighting this uphill battle. I mean, they're still like 20 scholarships short. I mean, not that any of these players want to go play for Kansas, but Kansas could take just about anybody who wants to transfer. That's how many scholarship players short they are. But yeah, 4 out of 7 said no. I, for the record, say yes. That I think I haven't heard of a player yet raising their hand saying I want to transfer. But I think if they want to, the NCAA will grant an immediate waiver.
Well, in the comment right underneath that, from the brother of our program director, who is a high school football coach in town, said they have to. If they don't, some of those kids will never get another shot. Example, Joe Burrow last year. If he didn't have his senior year, his situation would be very different. If this truly isn't a punishment, they will let them transfer. And I think both of those points are excellent. I really do. I happen to be on the no side. You happen to be on the yes side. It's tough to argue with what both are saying. I think they make excellent points.
I believe yesterday the NCAA announced that they will do with the fall sports season what they did with the spring sports season. That basically, if you want to stay, we will give you your year back.
Doesn't mean you're going to get your scholarship, though.
No, but it does put a lot of pressure on the universities, though. It's a morality play by the NCAA. Like, I believe FGCU has said they will honor the scholarships. Wisconsin announced they would not. I mean, Wisconsin came out and said, we love you guys, but, you can't stay here. I mean, the NCAA wants to give you your year back. We're fine with that, but you're going to have to spend that year somewhere else. And we don't care where you transfer either. I mean, you want to go compete against us in the Big Ten, we're fine with it, but you can't stay here. Just so you know. So you're right, Mark. It does not mean that they're going to get their scholarship from their old school, but they do get their year of eligibility.
1 minute.
So we have a poll question up for today. Again, brought to you by The Reef on Fort Myers Beach. Your home for live music.
However, not since 2003.
Well, somewhere around there.
Or thereabouts.
That's fair. With no Pac-12 and Big Ten football this year, should the AC champ get into the college football playoff? And we put UCF in parentheses mainly to let people know what conference they played in, because we know how many UCF fans we have down here and how passionate they are. We're not sure they all know what conference they play in.
No, we know they know. We
No,
just
not
don't
all
know
of them.
if everyone else does. So do you think, and would you put the AAC champ in the playoff this year?
It seems like a simple yes or no question, but we have three options. Yes, no, and never. Miller and Moulton. Oh, graphic. Here it comes, everybody. Boom!
Boom!
That looks big time. I don't know about the rest of you. I feel like we're on a... I mean, I really feel like right now we are one step ahead of Wayne's World. I know you probably know this today, David, but today is the, what are we, 16th anniversary? 04, Charlie?
Yeah. It was Friday the 13th. Yep.
You look so much better without your stripper jacket.
What are you laughing about?
I'm starting to get what I've wanted. I got people texting me for places that used to be here.
Oh, that's great.
And
That's
it's funny,
fantastic.
someone just sent me one, and they have a good tagline with it. And I had them on, they're next on the list. They're literally right underneath the Reef on the list. With Schaefer Beer as a sponsor, will you have to take the Blatz Challenge now?
I wanted to do Stroh's. Stroh's is no more, right? They don't do Stroh's anymore.
Stroh's, the 30-pack. Big fan.
Yes. Oh, yeah. And
College,
Stroh's,
$10 for a 30-pack.
Stroh's Light, which was horrendous.
Drank a lot of Stroh Light because they also had that in a 30-pack.
Oh, man, awful.
Oh, yes.
There's only one way to wake up in the morning.
How the heck are you?
Yep, that's it. Miller
I drove, which made me happier. I didn't let anybody else behind the wheel of the car.
and Moulton.
I like that they called that graphic a 70s wide world of sports graphic right there. I think that's very, very apropos.
Radio.
Very early
Broadcasting
ESPN.
live from the Kobe Cooling Remote
Scholastic
Studios,
Sports America
where it's
type graphic.
Always cool and comfortable.
It's up to you now. It's up to you. I like it.
Now, the best local sports show this town has ever heard. Here's Miller and Moulton.
You're live.
Couple minutes past the hour, top of the morning to you. How the heck are you? We're Miller and Moulton, Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio, streaming millerandmoulton.com, broadcasting live on the Miller and Moulton YouTube and Twitch.tv channels. You can always chime into the show, call or text in on the Williamson Brothers Marine and Roofing text and talk line, 479-5551, 479-5551. Bobby Carpenter, former Ohio State standout, to talk Buckeyes and to give us the pulse as to just how honked off Columbus, Ohio is.
Certainly seems that they are very angry. And from the sounds of things, Joshua Perry on the show yesterday, when we talked about Nebraska up and leaving the Big Ten, and the Big Ten saying, yeah, you want to leave, go. That $50 million, you don't get any of it. And I asked the question, would they have been that brazen if it was Ohio State? And Joshua, without even wasting a second, said, oh, those conversations went on behind closed doors. And Ohio State said as much yesterday. There was enough that came out of Columbus yesterday that it's very obvious that that scenario was talked about for a long, long time.
I'll tell you what, though, and listen, Commissioner Warren can come out looking great here. I mean, if the SEC, Big 12, ACC are unable to even get started, never mind if they start and the season is a debacle because of COVID. I mean, Commissioner Warren could come out and look really good in all this. But right now, if those three, along with the AAC, are able to pull this season off, even if they're able to play about 8 games, I think the college football fan would be thrilled. They would thank them for it. Thank you for giving us this taste that we so desperately needed. And I think it will come back to bite Warren. And I wonder then if it will also come back to bite Ohio State Athletic Director Gene Smith, who basically backed the commissioner yesterday. I mean, he did so a little bit through gritted teeth, but he said, hey, we're not happy about this, but you know what, at the end of the day, this is the right thing and we're going to abide by it and what have you. Well, his fan base is like, yeah, that's not what we wanted to hear. Now, don't get me wrong. That's the mature, rational, adult response. But that's not what we want to hear. We're fans for a reason. We're nuts. We're not happy about this. And I'm just letting you know right now, if these other guys pull it off and we don't even play, there's going to be hell to pay. And we'll take you down with them. We don't care at this point.
If Smith would have come out yesterday, David, and said it like this, we want to play. We really want to play. However, as all of our fan base understands, the Big Ten is not just the premier conference in the land, is the best academic conference, and you know all the crap that you're going to say.
Right, okay.
But it's also the biggest financial juggernaut in college sports. And as much as we'd like to play football, we're not walking away from what the Big Ten provides us in these buildings and all of these things. If he would have taken that approach, do you think that there's a chance the fan base would have reacted better? Do you think he could have gotten away with it? Or do you think he had to be, essentially was told by his president to get in lockstep with what the Big Ten's doing here?
I have no idea if he was told. Here's the problem. You're basically saying Gene Smith should have come out and said, listen, we're going to play ball for the money. Man, the money's just too good to walk away from. The problem with that is that the same ardent fan base that's really honked off would turn around and say, hey, the money will follow us. We could form our own conference from scratch, all right? And the money will follow us. And Mark, we talked about it yesterday. Take Ohio State out of the Big Ten. And I'm being serious about this. Take them out of the Big Ten. And let's just say the whole rest of the Big Ten remains the Big Ten. And Ohio State joins the ACC or forms their own conference, whatever it is. Which conference TV deal do you think is going to be more money in 3 years? I got my money on Ohio State because football drives these negotiations, and they're the biggest draw in the sport.
I think if you're saying would Ohio State come out of it with more than the $50 million a year than they're getting now, I think you've got a legit claim. But David, no. Let me just finish. I still think the Big Ten network, and the Big Ten teams. I know you're saying it's a glorified AAC. I've thought about that. I think you're wrong. I think that there's no way that that's close. If Michigan or if Penn State and UCF lined up 10 times, Penn State's going to win 9. They just are. And then Michigan against Memphis or Wisconsin against, break it down. It's not close. So the football's better. The alumni base is gigantically rich. And yes, Ohio State drives the bus, but Michigan's alumni's got more money than most conferences' alumni combined. So that network, maybe not $50 million a year, but it might be 35 without Ohio State. It still would be, if Ohio State ends up being 1 and the SEC were 2, the Big Ten would still be 3rd over any other conference, even without Ohio State.
I agree with that. But I'm just saying, I think Ohio State could get on their own what the rest of the Big Ten could get. That's all. That's why I'm saying if Gene Smith made the argument, well, we're staying because of the money, his ardent fan base would say, hey, the money will follow us. Okay, we can make just as much going forward if we left. Now, that might be wrong, but I think that that's what they believe. So I think he was in a lose-lose situation. He couldn't win, except to come out and say, we're going to play in the fall and we're going to take him to court. Okay, because that's what his fan base wants to hear. Because they're mad as you know what, and they're not taking it anymore. Speaking of, we're going to play in the fall and maybe deal with them in court. So Nebraska still wants to play. And they basically came out yesterday and they're like, we want to play. Who will play us? Well, see, here's the problem. When you say that, somebody may call you that you don't want to play.
You mean like Oklahoma?
Like North Dakota State. So Nebraska's like, because apparently North Dakota State, and I don't know if the rest of their conference in FCS has this, or North Dakota State's doing this on their own, but North Dakota State wants to play 4 non-conference games in the fall. They're still practicing, and they're publicly trying to schedule 4 games. And they're like, and then we'll play our conference in the spring. We'll play ball with the conference. We're not going to get up and leave. I mean, they've won 8 of the last 9 national championships. I mean, if anybody at the FCS level, I mean, quite frankly, they could make the case of, should we go to the Mountain West?
David, we could replace Rutgers with North Dakota State, and nearly every program other than women's basketball got better in the Big Ten.
And so, North Dakota State or Kansas in football, they play 10 times. That could easily be 5-5, maybe 6-4 Bison.
Oh, really?
Well,
I'd go 7-3 Bison.
Yeah, Les is starting to get some players
for this year.
This year,
definitely. I'll go 7-3 all day long.
Oh, I'd lay points with the Bison in Kansas. I'd lay points. Okay, please. All right, but. So here's the problem for Nebraska, though, and we'll have Gary Sharp on the show in a little over an hour, is, we're going to ask him about the Nebraska perspective and the fan base and all that. But, you come out and you go, hey, we want games. We want to play. Well, North Dakota State said, name the date. Give us the time. We'll be there. And Nebraska's like, we didn't really mean, we're trying to play FBS schools.
Right, not FCS schools that we could lose to.
Well, right.
No.
Give us a hell of a game, put it that way. Right.
What's the Nebraska NDSU spread right now? I'd like to find out from your VEASAN boys that what that one would be at, because it's inside of 4 points.
Yeah, it's definitely, put it this way, it's definitely a single-digit game.
Oh,
there's no
it's
doubt.
less than a touchdown.
It's a one-score game.
Yeah.
Right. And so, so that you got North Dakota State standing there with their arms crossed, out on the prairies there in Fargo going, name the
6.5 right now. I don't care where it's played. Who you taking?
Boy, it's tough to bet against North Dakota State.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, I think Nebraska would win, though. I do. I do think it's, another year of recruiting. He's raised the talent level, but North Dakota State's quarterback's probably the best player on the field. So anyway, so that is the problem. When you're mad as you know what, and you don't want to take it anymore, and you come out publicly and you say, we'll play anybody, anywhere. The problem is what happens. See, listen.
Just for the record, Phil Steele has Nebraska 5th on their side.
Right. Oh, I know. Well, and their side is much improved, but yes. Oh, I know. They're not there yet. They're not back. Oh, no. That was a rebuild. No. Nebraska needs to be built. Minnesota is ahead of Nebraska right now.
Think about that. This is in
PJ
football.
Fleck has his program ahead of, and PJ Fleck is getting higher star recruits than Scott Frost and Nebraska are right now.
And that's the program right there, David. That's getting crushed by what's happened. PJ Fleck, that row the boat thing, I don't know if it's a long-term answer anywhere. David and I have both heard a few things that make us worry about any program he's at. Fact of the matter, he's getting it done.
Yeah.
And he's been, as David said, he's been doing a hell of a job recruiting. And now a year off, if the other 3 conferences in the South play football, all of the work that he's done, all of it, has largely gone out the window. Because he won't get the kid that was thinking about going to a lower level SEC, ACC, Big 12 school now, David. He's lost that kid. Unless he's paying him in ways we don't know about.
And from a recruiting standpoint, that's what could happen to the Big Ten. Where, all the inroads that all those programs have made in the South of being able to get the second tier Florida kid and Georgia kid to, and maybe even some Texas kids to go and play for them. If they're out of commission for a year, it's going to really hurt them from a recruiting standpoint. Really hurt them. And a lot of these schools do not have the pool of talent in and around their backyard to just be able to recruit from. And so that's why we think this could be. Now, they could come out smelling like the proverbial rose here. They could be looking like the smart ones. They could be looking like the NBA and the Ivy League did from mid-March, when at first they took heat, and then a little while later we went, they were doing okay. But I am a little surprised, Mark, that UCF, unless they did it and I missed it, Alabama wants to – now the SEC took it out of their hands, but I'm a little surprised that UCF hasn't said, the ACC still has it where you could play a non-conference game. The Big 12, I believe you can play a non-conference game. I'm a little surprised that UCF in particular doesn't just take somebody on.
Well, I think, David, the problem is I think they would like to. I think they've probably even made the phone calls. The problem is, David, is that there are enough schools that the Big 12 is already scheduled against that are still playing football that unless a Big 12, an ACC, or an SEC opponent lost because football was canceled. Every one of their non-conference opponents, from a litigation standpoint, I don't think they can jump in.
No, it's
that's you know we kind of jumped the gun here. We're like, Miami should play them. Yeah, Miami should, but Miami's playing a game that's already on their schedule.
Right.
And that was where you and I about a week ago jumped the gun a little bit, because you are 100% right that UCF would love to play those games because UCF lost their games. But I think like the Canes, are they still playing Wagner or something like that? I mean,
well, is it FAMU? Who are they opening with?
The original schedule was
September 10th. They're now going to play their first game on the night the NFL season kicks off. By the way, 4 weeks tonight, Texans and Chiefs. NFL, 4 weeks tonight. The NFL season kicks off. Canes still scheduled, I believe, Thursday night, September 10th. Is it the Rattlers? Is it FAMU?
No, they've got UAB on their schedule, and
okay.
that was an original game, so that's their non-con game. So they kept a team that was on their schedule, and It's hard. I've got Phil Steele booked to my right with every schedule being wrong, and trying to make sure we don't screw this up too badly. But all of these teams, literally, unless you had two MAC opponents and a Big Ten opponent, these teams are SOL to try to find new games.
Right, because they don't want to bring a lawsuit onto themselves, and right, that's a valid point.
It sucks because everything you're saying is really good.
Here's one more little more meat for the angst fodder as to what Ohio State and or Michigan could be feeling. Think about this, Mark. You're born and raised in that part of the country, and the program I'm about to bring up, you've got some serious angst for. I want you, and you're a Michigan State fan, but I want you to be an Ohio State and or Michigan fan right now.
Oh, I know where you're going to, and I love it.
Just let the gravy soak into the bread a little bit here. Okay. Now, you're going to sit back and watch Notre Dame play all fall, and you're not playing. No. Let it sink in.
No, I am.
More.
I am, because it's not just Ohio State and Michigan. It really isn't. And I know the point you're making, and your point is valid. But even my Spartans, David, a long history with the Irish.
Oh, yeah.
A long, long history. In fact, Notre Dame is more responsible for Michigan State being an actual football program than any other school, because they took them on when they were MAC and drummed them, but they took them on and always played them. Think about Purdue and Indiana, both in the state of Indiana, much like Iowa. While Iowa State's going to be playing football, the Hawkeyes are not. While Notre Dame's playing football, Purdue and Indiana are not. And then to your point, Michigan. Who despises Notre Dame.
Hates them. Every one of their games. I mean, you got the NBC games, and then whenever games aren't on NBC, the others will be on ABC at 3:30. You will not be able to miss, or they'll put them in prime time at 8. You will not be able to. If they can pull it off, you won't be able to miss a Notre Dame game this year.
So in Columbus, your choices for football are going to be Notre Dame,
or Alabama.
Clemson, Alabama, LSU, Georgia, Oklahoma, and Florida. Yep. Now, I want you to think about that. And, Foot fans in our Twitch chat room, and I think he's a UCF guy, but I think he might have been a Buckeye first. I know we have a ton of diehard Buckeyes that listen to this show.
Yeah.
I would like you very much right now to simply text us, 479-5551. The first couple of things that you were thinking as I went through those teams you're going to be watching on television this year.
And you don't have to use asterisks, by the way. You're texting it. Just say it. Let it out. The reason we want you to let it out is because otherwise we feel we've just created a road rage possibility throughout Southwest Florida. All right, that we may work some of you up into such a lather, and we don't want that. So text it to us.
And as much as I like watching this Sabrina Katz's traffic reports, I don't want any of our listeners hurt.
Right.
I mean, she can pop back on 2-3 times an hour regardless. I don't need it to be for a 6-car pileup. So text me. Talk to text. Scream it in the phone for all I care. But again, Notre Dame's going to play in prime time 4 or 5 times, and you're going to be stuck watching it.
Right. Can't miss it. And like you said, you're a Big Ten fan. And the games you're going to see, and they'll be the only damn games on, by the way. Top 4 SEC teams, Clemson, Notre Dame, Oklahoma, Texas. That's it. Those will be the games on television. Thank you very much. How's your fall going? Oh, boy. Well, the angst that some of you are feeling right now, Bobby Carpenter's been feeling. He's not very happy about this as a former Buckeye, as somebody who does radio in Columbus. The former Buckeye standout will join us coming up in a bit. Mike Oresco at the top of the hour. The AAC is planning on moving forward. In fact, there are poll questions today. With no Big Ten and no Pac-12, hey, you got 4 spots in a playoff. By the way, they're planning on going forward with the playoff. I mean, Mr. Hancock came out the other day and said, yeah, nothing's changed on our end. Well, we don't see why we can't play the 3 playoff games and go forward with this. Now, the one part of what they're planning on going forward with, I don't get. They're all still planning on flying to Dallas and meeting every week. I don't know why you can't do that by a Zoom and what have you. That seems a little silly to me, but okay, whatever. So, they're still going forward with this as of now. And so, with that in mind, no Big Ten, no Pac-12, would you vote in the AAC champ into the playoff this year? I voted yes. And I voted yes because, quite frankly, I think they should be rewarded for playing.
What are you going to do? Does that mean we automatically? The other ways, basically what you're saying is ACC champ, Big 12 champ, and 2 SEC teams. Come on. They already played an SEC championship game. They're going to get this sucker down to 1. I'm never with you on this. There are 3 choices. Yes, no, and never. I would vote never every single year except this one. I'm with you, David. They're playing. Put Memphis, when they win the AAC championship, in the damn game.
UCF, baby. UCF going to finally make the playoffs.
Memphis State, baby. Keith Lee.
Might only be their 3rd best team in the last 4 years, but that's okay, baby. That's all right. Take your shot. Miller and Moulton, Bobby Carpenter, to feel his angst and get the pulse of Columbus and Buckeye Nation on the other side. Miller and Moulton, Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio.
This is The Herd with Colin Cowherd.
And
Figure 3.
graphic.
Kyle Lowry's taking a lot of heat. He doesn't deliver in the clutch. It's like, oh no, Kyle's a really good 3. So with the Lakers, it's Kyle Kuzma. He's having his worst year. 12 and a half a game, 30%.
Oh.
So when you start looking at the Lakers, there's just no wiggle room. So I just don't think this Laker team's championship.
Woo! Lot going on over here, everybody. Lot going on. Johnny Mack, enjoy that horrible golf course. Hey, Tim.
We're talking about their huge selection and great pricing on Core-Tec flooring. Tim, tell us what's new at the store.
Right now we have 90 colors of Core-Tec in stock, ready to go, pick up, put down as soon as you want it. Everything from starting at $299 on up with lifetime warranty.
And it's not just the many colors of Core-Tec that you have. You also have other Core-Tec products as well.
We also carry the Core-Tec stone product. Looks like tile, looks like stone, but it's Core-Tec, so you get the softness, quietness, and the EV installation to go with it. We also have Core-Tec wood, liquid wood, real wood, but with a more stable core for Southwest Florida's humidity.
If you haven't been to the Floormeisters, you really owe it to yourself to visit the store. 6281 Naples Boulevard, right next to Costco, or go online, floormeisters.com. That's floormeisters.com.
I'm a busy person.
Catch the show anytime. Check out MillerandMoulton.com and subscribe to the Daily
No wonder that one doesn't work, 'cause it's a damn shit. Boy, oh boy, David, if you could see this side of the glass right here. I mean, this actually looks, right now I've got both scenes set up. I'm pretty impressed. I mean, it's something a 2-year-old could do, but let's, oh crap. All right, I thought I had a second.
This is Miller and Moulton. You're live.
"27 minutes past the hour. Thanks so much for being with us. We are Miller and Moulton. This is Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio. We stream the show at millerandmoulton.com. We broadcast it live so you can see it on the Miller and Moulton YouTube and Twitch.tv channels. Mike Oresco, the commissioner of the AAC, will join us coming up at the top of the hour. The AAC, the focus of our poll question today, in which we ask, hey, with no Big Ten and no Pac-12 football, would you put the AAC champ in the 14 playoff? Yes, no, or never. Those are the options in the poll question. That Mark Miller, the David Moulton, millerandmoulton.com. Hoping to talk with Bobby Carpenter coming up in a moment. Gary Sharp, part of 1620 in Omaha. He will join us an hour from now to give us the pulse of what Cornhusker Nation really wants their president and their school to do. Do they really want to leave the Big Ten, or are they just spitting mad and they just need a few days to get it off their chest? Gary Sharp will join us in an hour to talk about that. But make sure you go to millerandmoulton.com, that Mark Miller, the David Moulton, to vote in our poll question. We have Orlando Magic basketball tonight, taking on, I was going to say Zion and the Pelicans, but Zion's not playing, and New Orleans isn't going to make the playoffs. So it's the regular season finale for the Magic. Our coverage tips off tonight at 8:30 here on Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio. The hockey, by the way, begins at 3. Tuesday was a pretty rough day in Columbus, Ohio, Mark. Big Ten announced they were not going to play football in the fall, and the Columbus Blue Jackets lost the 4th longest game ever played in 5 overtimes. It was a dark day, as you like to say, in Columbus. Game 2 of the Lightning and the Blue Jackets at 3 o'clock today. You can see it, for those that are interested, all the NHL playoffs on NBC SN. Joining us now, without further ado, Bobby Carpenter, former Ohio State standout, first-round pick of the Cowboys. He's talking sports on 97.1 The Fan in Columbus, and also you get to see him on a variety of ESPN channels. You can follow Bobby on Twitter at bcarp3, bcarp3. Bobby, top of the morning to you. How are you?
I'm doing well, Dave. Mark, how you guys doing this morning?
Well, we are fine. On the angst scale of 1 to 10, 10 being burn the house down, where is Buckeye Nation today? And quite frankly, where are you? Because you are part of it. And from following you on Twitter, you've not been a happy Buckeye.
I have not. I think the house may have already been burned down. Now you're just sitting there sadly looking at the ashes, maybe with a cold pop in your hand and sitting on like a 5-gallon bucket with your head between your legs thinking, how did it go so wrong?
Well, how did it go so wrong, Bobby? I mean, of your criticisms, what would be your biggest criticism as to how the Big Ten handled this?
I guess you could parcel it out a number of different ways. If they talk about the long-term effects and all the uncertainty and everything, if that was the case, it was going to be the case in April. Tell everybody in April. Let the student athletes go and enjoy their summer. Don't ask them to be incredibly responsible, to keep their numbers low, and to try to go in and train and do it in a responsible way, and to make sure that, hey, we're going to try to have a viable season, and we're putting the onus on you to make that happen. Because across not just Ohio State and the Big Ten, college football at large, sure, there were some spikes at the beginning, but then all of a sudden that began to dissipate. The student athletes took it serious, and for what I've seen, I think have done a terrific job. And especially the medical staffs as well with it, giving them first-class care at a lot of these universities. The second piece of it is you took the decision out of the people's hands who are going to be the most impacted by it. The student athletes and their families, the parents, the players, getting together, sitting around, hey, do we have any health issues? Okay, if we do, well, you might not be able to see grandma all season. Okay, is that something you're willing to risk? All right, what are the potential fallouts for you? What are the opportunities that could be created? How would your mental health be if you didn't play? You weigh all of those things in the collective basket, your own personal cost-benefit analysis. Like, that's what America's built on, the risk-reward of anything, taking a job, getting on an airplane, whatever it is you want to do, you have to have that own personal risk profile. That was stripped away because most of the players wanted to do it. And frankly, they were giving them an opt-out. Kevin Warren said we didn't want to encourage players. You're not encouraging them. You're just giving them an opportunity. You're giving them an out if they don't want to do it, and they receive all their full benefits. And then you're trying to decouple the football players, the student athletes, with the students in large, because it's been told forever that how they're one and the same. And so you're going to let tens of thousands of students back onto campus from all across different cities, states, and regions of the country. You're going to allow them to live two in a dorm room. You can't social distance in dorm rooms, at least not in the ones that I've ever been in or the ones that I lived in. And so you're going to be in there with some strangers. And those people aren't near as responsible as student athletes because they have much less to lose. These guys would be trying to play a football season. And then you go to the long-term liability of this. Well, the myocarditis came up and all these things, which has been around for a long time. Heck, it's what Reggie Lewis died of. And you're going to tell me, hey, you can't do this because of this potentially happening. Well, the Big 12 comes out before you return to play. You're going to be able to have an EKG. We're going to do blood testing. We're going to echocardiogram, a cardiac scan on your heart to make sure that everything is good. To make sure if you do have an issue, we're not letting you back out there. And so we're going to try to mitigate every potential thing. And if you know what, you still don't feel comfortable, hey, you can always opt out. And so I guess I just look at all of these things and say, everybody's done the job that you've asked them to do, and you weren't even willing to try to go out there, let them practice in pads, see if it goes, see if the numbers rise, maybe play a game, then see if the numbers rise. No one's asking the Big Ten to go out there and commit in blood that you're going to play 10 games. Let's just play one and see how it goes.
Well, that's where I'm at, Bobby, for what it's worth. I'm just surprised. It almost seems un-American to not try, quite frankly. We're talking with Bobby Carpenter, former Buckeye standout, 97.1 in Columbus, and you see him on a variety of ESPN shows. Going to ask you to go back in time only a little bit here. What do you think your future would have been if you didn't get to play, say, your final year at Ohio State? If they took it away from you the way that they are taking it away for a bunch of players in the Big Ten and Pac-12 and other conferences. And, you went in the first round. Do you think you go in the first round if you don't get to play that final year? Do you think you would have transferred and gone and say, hey, I got to play. I got to put film together. I got to go. I mean, how different do you think your life would be if they took that final year away?
Oh, it would have been completely different. I toyed with coming out my junior year, and best case scenario, probably a third round pick. And that was probably me trying to talk myself into it. probably more fourth, fifth round pick. And Joe Burrow said the same thing. Like, he went from being probably a fourth, fifth round pick at best to being number one overall pick, Heisman Trophy winner, changing the trajectory for his family future forever, all because of one season. And so, is transferring a realistic possibility? The problem is all these other schools, like, they're probably almost full boat on scholarships anyway. And so I don't know where you'd be able to have an opportunity to get in. Could you transfer and walk on? Yeah, you could do that. Would you be able to get immediate eligibility? I don't know. You'd have to put your name in the NCAA transfer waiver Plinko board and see if it falls into the right slot for you. And hopefully that would be the case. But, I mean, who knows about the certainty of that either.
And we've all watched Plinko. 9 times out of 10, they end up with $100 or $500. They never get the 10 grand. We all know that. And that was actually our poll question yesterday, Bobby. Would the NCAA actually allow the kids from the Big Ten, the Pac-12, the Mountain West, and the MAC to transfer and give them immediate eligibility? And we asked our listeners to think as the NCAA. And it was about 57% that said no. I think that's a low number. Bobby, you've worked in this industry for a long time. Do you think the NCAA would even come close to granting immediate waivers for these kids? Because if they did, you think what that could do to some of the programs and the conferences I just named.
Well, so here's the thing. The NCAA is essentially it's comprised of all of the schools in Division I. So you have to make a decision. Are there more schools not playing or more schools that are? And because if you have more schools that aren't playing, especially the big boys in the Power 5, if you're the Big 12, ACC, and SEC, heck yeah, you're going to put pressure on the NCAA. You took away these kids' opportunities. Don't blame them. It's the Big 10 and Pac-12. Let them transfer. And so, yeah, they should be worried. And the Big 10 and Pac-12 are going to fight their tails off to not let it happen. But that doesn't matter. Like, I honestly almost think that they should be granted waivers to be able to do it, because this was taken away out of their control. No different than if someone committed, they get to school and the school was on sanctions for something that happened 2 years before. It's not those kids' fault. They didn't do anything wrong. They did everything you asked them to do. And so I know that the Big Ten and Pac-12 will fight like heck to stop it. You have 3 other conferences that'll be for it. We'll see what happens. I don't think that it'll probably be the case, but you never know.
He's Bobby Carpenter, former Buckeye standout, had a nice NFL career. He's on 97 When the Fan in Columbus, and he's also on a variety of ESPN shows. You can follow Bobby on Twitter at bcarp3. At the end of the day, Bobby, have you been able to find out, did Ohio State vote along with the commissioner to cancel football in the fall? Ultimately, what did the president of Ohio State decide? We're trying to follow this from afar. We understand, don't the Buckeyes have a new president coming on board in about a week and a half? So who voted and how did they vote?
I don't think there's anything that's been publicly put out there yet. From what I heard, it was a 6-8 vote, with Ohio State voting, the new president, Christina Johnson, voting yes. I heard Michigan voted yes, Penn State, Purdue, Iowa, and Nebraska. And Iowa and Nebraska, I think, were in it the whole time. I think some of the other presidents may have got on board because, frankly, if they knew it was a losing battle and they couldn't get winning votes, you'd rather have your name in the yes column to be able to go back to the people in your state and at your college and be like, at least I tried. And so from what I had heard, she had voted yes. I don't know if she voted yes with the intention of wanting it to actually work, but my problem is you have like Rutgers and Maryland in there who were probably on the no side from what I've been told. And those are the 2 votes that probably swung it for certain. And they're not really trying to win at athletics anyway, at least not football. Like they joined the conference because of monetary constraints. So, they're still collecting their check and they're going to be happy. They're not really active contributors to the conference.
Not to mention they're not even getting paid the full amount yet. What the hell are they getting a full vote for yet? I mean, I'm a Big Ten grad, Bobby, so I wanted Big Ten football. And as you said, I've been in dorms at a few of those schools. Yours, the one I went to in East Lansing, and the one in Ann Arbor. You can't social distance in a dorm at any of those campuses. We are all well aware of that. Bobby, how close do you think Ohio State was from blowing? Because they are the number 1 draw in the sport. They are. They're the best television ratings in the sport. If they picked up their ball and left, it could have been done. How close do you think Ohio State was from creating full-on college football Armageddon?
I think they probably talked about it, but let it die. I mean, I love Gene Smith, the AD. He's done a lot of great things, but one thing with Ohio State, with Michigan, with Penn State, and you throw Nebraska in the mix now, like those 4 schools really drive everything that goes on in the Big Ten as far as eyeballs and viewership and branding. And if they wanted to, they could have swung this if they wanted to. If they wanted to say, hey, we're going to play, and anyone else that wants to play with us, go ahead, Kevin Warren would have been powerless, because that's where the value and the TV money comes from, is from those teams, especially Ohio State. I wish they wouldn't be as compliant and be in it for everybody else, because everybody's not in it for them. And they're essentially taking a hit now because they're trying to do what they believe is right to make it best for everyone, even though if it's not in their own self-interest.
If the other 3 Power 5 conferences in the AAC are able to pull this off, even if they're able to play about 8 games and have enough of a season in which the college football fan nationwide goes, all right, way to go, nice job. What's the long-term impact on the Big Ten in your estimation? We happen to believe Ohio State will be okay. That you guys will still get your players. You'll still be a top 5 program in the country year in, year out. But we think the trickle down is going to be disastrous. What do you think it will be for the rest of the Big Ten if the other Power 5s are able to pull this off?
It's going to hurt perception-wise. I don't think there'll be a mass exodus of players, but it's going to hurt in recruiting. You're still going to get the players within your geographical footprint for the most part. And Ohio State's still going to get the best in the Midwest. The problem is now that you have a harder time going nationally, because every other conference is going to sit there and say, hey, these guys, they tell you they value football as much. And sure, they got 100,000 fans and they've got all these things and they're the most watched team in the country in Ohio State. But the reality is, when it came time to put up or shut up, their president in their conference essentially took a knee and said, this isn't really what we're about. And so you're becoming the Ivy League then, where sports were really important and now they're not. We're not going to prioritize it the same way. And that's going to have an impact on high school kids when you're recruiting them. And it'll take 3 or 4 years to potentially dig out of that recruiting hole, which in college football, that seems like a lifetime.
Oh, there's no doubt. And I think the school you most like to beat is affected the most by it, because Michigan has been a national recruiter for as long as I've been alive, and they have the academics and the history and all of those things. But if they lose a year, I think they really get beat up by the SEC school, the Big 12 school. Ohio State's always going to be able to recruit nationally because it's right now a factory. I think Michigan really takes it on the chin. Do you think spring football, which is what they've thrown out, and Urban came out an hour later and said that ain't going to work, which that was a ringing endorsement for the Big Ten. Bobby, do you think spring football has any chance of working in the Big Ten?
No, especially not if the other 3 conferences play. Who's going to play? You're going to have to me, it's the ultimate cash grab. You're going to try to sell this to your TV partners, and you're just going to try to put people in the stands to recoup some of those losses to try to make it your athletic department viable so you can have any sports. That's the real issue. If you don't have football, you're not going to have anything. And the best players aren't going to play. Like I said, it's a watered-down product. And what are you playing for? If the other 3 conferences have already gone off, they're playing for a national championship, which this team at Ohio State, it's inarguable that they're one of the best 4 teams. You can make an argument that they have the most talented roster in the country right now. And so if I'm Justin Fields, I'm not coming back. I'll help him pack up his bags, man. I love Ohio State. Don't risk that for yourself for nothing, for a watered down conference title that nobody cares about. You failed these kids, and now you're trying to pass the buck. They don't really want to play in the spring anyway. They're just trying to placate to people saying, we're going to try, we're going to do this. They're not trying. If they were going to try, they should have tried in the fall.
I hear mornings are in your future.
Mornings have always been part of my life. I like to get up and work out at 6. You caught me just after my workout anyway. So, we're going to hit we're going local with morning drive. So me and myself and one of my former teammates, Anthony Schlegel, and one of our other hosts, Brandon Beam, on the show, are going to start the morning juice here at 97.1 The Fan and get everybody pumped and ready to go. And it'll probably be a rough go of it here in the fall. Hopefully the NFL keeps going, but it's you play the hands you're dealt, and even if it's not a very good hand, you play it as well as you can. And I just wish Kevin Warren would maybe learn that.
We all?
Maybe the Blue Jackets will give you a run.
Start pulling for the Jackets, Bobby.
Listen, I can't handle another 8-period marathon. That was the most exhausting day of my life. Tuesday, and there was even no good payoff at the end of that. I got the Buckeyes taken away from me, Big Ten football, and then I watched 8 periods essentially to watch the Blue Jackets lose. It was a painful existence.
Hey, Bobby, look, we're all just fans, but you played at the highest level in your sport. When you're watching 8 periods, and I know you're not a hockey player, you're a football player, But when you were watching that, what were you thinking about the players? Not so much the play, but when you're watching these guys play a marathon like that, as an athlete, what's going through your head?
I started thinking about the longest game I ever played in. It was a triple overtime game against NC State in 2003 with Phillip Rivers, where we ran like 11 off. We were up 24, like 7 at halftime. We ran 11 offensive plays in the second half, which means we played pretty much the whole second half and 3 overtimes on defense. I think we played like 95 snaps or something. It was incredibly hot for Columbus. I remember you're just delusional, delirious, like, okay, just keep going out, just keep operating, and hopefully they'll make a mistake. Just do your job. And we stopped TJ McClendon like a half yard short on a 2-point conversion to win the game. I remember just like wanting to celebrate, but just not having any energy to.
Bobby, thanks so much for your time. All the best in mornings beginning next week, and continued success on the Fan and with ESPN.
Thank you, gentlemen. You guys have a wonderful day.
You too, Bobby. Thank
Bobby
you.
Carpenter. Follow him on Twitter at BCarp3. The letter B, Carp3. Bobby Carpenter, former Buckeye standout, 7 years in the NFL. Yeah, he's going from middays to mornings. I just want to bring that up. You know, a couple guys used to do afternoons, and
it sounds like I got to start working out like Bobby before the show. And you thinking coffee gives me energy? Let me do 10 jumping jacks and a sit up. I should be really fired up.
Listen, you got to walk up your steps, okay? I figured that's enough of a jolt every morning. 13 minutes before the hour. Today was the day when, coming up, Mike Oresco in 15 minutes, the commissioner of the AAC, they're playing, and they'll let their teams play 12 games, 8 conference, 4 non-conference if they can find the games. We'll talk to the commish coming up in 15 minutes. Gary Sharp, live from Omaha at roughly 8:30 here on Miller and Moulton. Thanks for listening. Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio.
Watching baseball last night, and I was like, it feels like baseball. It is baseball. I don't think we missed the fans. And as we scale down the cost because the revenue is going to be far less without fans, we do realize that sports
I got it. I just texted you.
What? Oh, you're not talking to me.
It's Fred Kobe with your Kobe Cooling Tip of the Day. One of the biggest fears a homeowner has about their home is that the air conditioning system will need to be replaced. Well, folks, it's going to happen someday, so prepare yourself for that day. The good news is Kobe Cooling has a 100% NATE certified team of mechanics that actually fix air conditioners. When you call for service, our unique team will find your issue and fix it. Your air conditioner will be replaced someday.
Eat me.
But that doesn't have to be today. You can still get those giant firms with cheap service call prices and get a sales technician to sell you a new unit, or you can hire a real NATE certified mechanic and we'll fix your system and help you plan for the next air conditioner purchase. Call 239-482-1542 for a real mechanic and not a salesman in disguise. When you think of air conditioning companies, we hope you think of Kobe Cooling. We're the company your neighbors use. License CACO 57313.
No matter where you're boating, with Towboat US, you're covered by the world's largest towing fleet with over 300 ports nationwide. Your local Towboat US companies in Charlotte, Lee, and Collier counties are here to help 24/7, 365 days a year. Inland, the river to Lake O, and out 75 nautical miles. And new membership pricing starts as low as $99. Call 239-945-1664 for more information, or visit towboatusacapecoral.com. With Towboat US, you're never stuck on the water.
We've got our good friend Tim Meister, owner of the Four Meisters in Naples, on the phone. We're talking about their huge selection and great pricing on Cortec flooring. Tim, tell us what's new at the store.
Right now we have 90 colors of Cortec in stock, ready to go, pick up, put down as soon as you want it. Everything from starting at $299 on up with lifetime warranties.
And it's not just the many colors of Cortec that you have. You also have other Cortec products as well.
We also carry the Cortex Stone product. Looks like tile, looks like stone, but it's Cortex, so you get the softness, quietness, and the easy installation to go with it. We also have Cortex wood, look of wood, real
Okay,
wood.
that's the one I want. Where the flip is it?
Humidity.
If you haven't been to the Floor Meisters,
What are you doing over there? You're like mad scientist.
I'm working, David.
Right now.
I know you don't.
are.
What I'm doing is trying to get this image up, and I'm having a hell of a time transitioning from one to the other because the picture side sucks, and I can't get this effing thing to work, and it's wanting me to throw a computer through the wall. Mother of God, why doesn't this shit ever work?
A lot of sports stuff to talk about.
We back it up.
Good sports talk radio.
On Fox Sports Radio.
Across the nation, America is moving forward, finding our footing, getting back on our feet. Life continues to open up. Businesses are getting back to business, and we are too. We know you rely on the Good Feet store to be there when you need us. We're open and ready to serve you. Our personally fit arch supports are designed to help alleviate, even eliminate, foot, knee, hip, and back pain, and provide comfort, balance, and support. The well-being of our customers, associates, and community is our highest priority. So we've implemented new measures, procedures, and precautions, keeping your health and safety in the forefront. The Good Feet store is lending a hand to help America get back on its feet. And just as we have for a quarter century, we're helping to improve the quality of
Oh, pool guy might be here. Can you check, Maddie? Everything's locked.
Making your life miserable? Call 552-FEET or visit us in Naples or our newest store in Portland. Pool need a checkup? Call the doctor, the pool doctor.
Hi, Dr. Mark here. Is your pool a pain to operate? Automation is the answer. Use your phone to turn on your spa, and it will be warm when you get home. Free on-site evaluations. We're a family company, and for over 40 years, we've been doing business right.
The prescription is the pool doctor for award-winning pool service, repairs, and unheard of $39 diagnostic calls. That's mypooldoctor.com or 239-574-1133. State certified CPC 057088.
Now back to Miller and Moulton. No. This is Miller and Moulton.
You're live.
Eight minutes before the hour here on Miller and Moulton. Thanks for being with us. Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio, streaming at millerandmoulton.com, broadcasting live on the Miller and Moulton YouTube and Twitch.tv channels. Our poll question today, which you can answer at millerandmoulton.com. With no Pac-12 and Big Ten football this year, should the AAC champ get into the college football playoff? Right now, 78% of you say yes. 15% of you say no. As for the other 7%, you say never. Got to keep our sense of humor, folks. MillerandMoulton.com. That Mark Miller, the David Moulton on Twitter. Now time for
Miller and Moulton's Today Was the Day When, giving you the history of today's date so you're a beacon of useless knowledge around the office.
Useless, but a lot of fun to talk about.
This is Today Was the Day When, Fox Sports Radio and FoxSportsFM.com.
Today was the day when, brought to you in part today by Ricochet, located on US 41 in Fort Myers, where a handful of nickels could change your life on a Tuesday. The Ricochet.
Outstanding.
We start today in 1933 at the Blue Mond Country Club, where Gene Sorensen defeats Willie Grogan 5-4 for his third PGA, his sixth of his seven majors. 1935 Roller Derby is born when the Transcontinental Roller Derby begins at the Chicago Coliseum. Satchel Paige in 1948, at the age of 42, pitches his first major league complete game. Dave DeBusschere.
And if you think he was 42 when he pitched in that game, you're crazy. He was at least 5 years older.
No doubt. Dave DeBusschere, we know him as a basketball player, but today in 1963, he shut out the Cleveland Indians while pitching for the Chicago White Sox. I find that remarkable, David.
Yeah, and part of those Knicks championship teams. But yes, he was a great athlete.
Right. 1966, Revolver by the Beatles. Arguably their best album was released. Bonnie and Clyde, released today in 1967. Bowie Kuhn took the interim off his commissioner status today when he was elected for a 7-year term by Major League Baseball. 1973, Leonard Skinner released their debut album, allowing all of us to say from this point forward, play Freebird! For the last time, we saw the Waltons today in 1981. Everybody say it together. Good night, John Boy.
Good night, John Boy.
1989, Payne Stewart wins the PGA, one better than Andy Bean, Curtis Strange, and Mike Reed.
Mike Reed collapsed down the stretch, like a 3-shot lead with 3 to play, and collapsed.
It is the 16th anniversary of Hurricane Charlie, folks. Hit land in Punta Gorda. Oh, right about now, wasn't it?
No,
a little
no,
later.
No. It was early afternoon that it hit.
Okay.
I remember standing in line at Jersey Mike's. It was around 11:30 in the morning, and Jim Reef told us, yeah, it's changed direction. It's coming right at us. It hit, I think, between 2 and 3 o'clock.
There you go. Michael Phelps wins 3 golds in one day at the Beijing Olympics. All world records. The 200-meter IM, the 200-meter butterfly, and the 4x200-meter freestyle. In one day, 3 world records.
Pretty good day.
8 years later, he would end his career by winning the 4x100 medley, that great comeback by the men's team in that. And it was 3 years ago that JT wins his first major at Quail Hollow. If you were born today, you share your birthday with Alfred Hitchcock, born 1899 today. Ben Hogan, born today in 1912. Bobby Clark, with that great smile, born today in 1949 in Flin Flon, Manitoba. Betsy King, golfer, born today in 1955. David Faraday is 62 years old today.
1 minute.
And Mark Lemke is 55. Braves playoff hero right there.
Pride of Utica, New York. Yes. Clutch player.
No doubt.
Average during the regular season.
Oh, yeah. 220 hitter at second base for the Braves.
Terrific in the postseason. Yep.
Absolutely. So that is Today Was the Day When, brought to you by Ricochet in Fort Myers. Remember, Nickel Beer Night on Tuesdays. Did you ever do a Ricochet after the show on a Tuesday? You ever get the whole staff over there? I figured you had to.
Wasn't far away.
Right. It was like literally across the street. You could spit there.
Yeah. Oh, sure. Yeah, I could stop there before making a left on 41 heading home. Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Mike Oresco, the commissioner of the AAC, will join us on the other side, and Gary Sharp still to come in our 8 o'clock hour. Miller and Moulton, thanks for listening to Fox Sports Radio. Why in the hell is this image?
Na-na-na-na.
Receiving. Over.
Alexa, play Fox Sports FM on TuneIn.
LeBron has shown his greatness. Kevin Durant's a better player.
Sorry, I don't know that one.
Smart speaker.
Are we cheering for idiots? What's going on?
Sounds more like a dumb speaker, am I right?
You're an idiot. Nice job.
Get Southwest Florida sports talk delivered to your speaker.
This is easy.
Just say, Alexa,
hello.
Play Fox Sports FM on TuneIn.
Finally, something worthwhile.
I didn't think it was going to be this easy.
Did you know that voters have the option to cast their ballot by mail or vote early at any early voting site? Visit colliervotes.com to request your vote by mail ballot, to enjoy the convenience of voting from home, or to find an early voting location near you. Find early voting dates, times, and locations at colliervotes.com. That's colliervotes.com. Avoid the lines on Election Day by voting by
Mother
mail
of God.
or at an early voting location near you.
Looking for a frameless shower door? My Shower Door has just opened their 8th Florida showroom, and it's conveniently located in Cape Coral. With more than 75,000 frameless shower doors installed, no one has more experience and 5-star reviews than My Shower Door. We've been named #1 by readers of the News Press and Naples News for 17 consecutive years and have just been named as Lee County's Manufacturer of the Year. Want to see more? Go to myshowerdoor.com.
WFSX AM from Naples to Cape Coral and all of Southwest Florida. 94.1 Fox Sports Radio. Here's what's trending now. Brought to you by the Center for Men's Health, C4MH.com.
Mike Oresco, how you doing?
Good morning, Mike. Mark Miller, how are you?
Hi, Mark. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks as always for your time. It's David and I as usual.
So it'd be you and David, Mark.
Yep, and David always goes first. How come you're laughing? That sounds like something you're familiar with, Mike.
Yeah, I think so.
How about that, Moulton? You just got a shot.
Boy, really. I'm the boss, too. And I always defer to him. Look at that.
I didn't mean it disrespectfully.
Just factually, Mike. Just factually, that's all.
Mike, in all seriousness, you, your wife, your family, everybody healthy? Everybody good?
Everybody is, David, thank you. How about you? You and Mark and your families, everybody there?
Everything good?
Yeah, so far.
Yeah.
Knock on wood.
We've been tracking the counties. It looks like Florida, things are getting better. And Texas also, which is good.
Well, there was no real way to go.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's true, yeah. How's Gary doing, by the way? I haven't talked to him in quite a while.
Really well. We're coming up here, but yeah, he's doing well.
I'm the man of the house. Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio. Broadcasting live from the Kobe Cooling Remote Studios, where it's always cool and comfortable.
Oh, I like It's up to you now. It's up to you. I like it.
Now, the best local sports show this town has ever heard. Here's Miller and Moulton.
You're live.
As we begin the final hour of Miller and Moulton on this Thursday, thanks so much for being with us. Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio. We're streaming at millerandmoulton.com, and we're broadcasting live once again on the Miller and Moulton YouTube and Twitch.tv channels. We'll head out to Omaha, Nebraska to get the pulse of Cornhusker Nation with Gary Sharp at the bottom of the hour. Mike Oresco is kind enough to join us once again, the commissioner of the AAC. Commissioner, thanks so much for your time. Hope you and your family are doing well. How are you?
My pleasure, David. David, yeah, doing great. Thank you. Again, as well as can be expected in view of everything that's going on, but we're all healthy, and we hope you and all your listeners and your families are doing well as well. Thank you.
Tuesday night, you were quoted as saying, listen, we've decided it would be premature to make any kind of decision at this point on such an important matter. But what are the people that you're conferring with telling you? All right. Are they optimistic? Are you glass half full or glass half empty right now about your college football season?
David, the glass is half full. And we're cautiously optimistic, and we're moving forward. The idea of a decision at this point is I'm beginning to think it's almost semantics, because there isn't a particular point where you're saying, well, okay, this is written in stone, but we want to move ahead until we can't. And we think that ultimately, unless something happens in the interim, and something could, obviously, I don't want to sound wishy-washy. I just want to say that obviously you don't know. The virus, as Dr. Fauci said, will often determine what's happening. But if trends continue as they are, and that we have very few positives, we have 6 of our 11 schools have no positives, and in their latest round of testing for their student athletes, and it's moving in the right direction there. The counties we're in over the last 2 weeks been a pretty significant percentage drop in cases. No cases, good, obviously, but the point is, it is improving. If that continues, our medical experts, David, have essentially said there is no reason not to play football. There's no medical reason not to play. They've been tracking on the myocarditis issue. They've been tracking on it for some time. It's not new, and they said all the medical groups have been aware of it, and they don't think anything's emerged recently that would change their view. And they're not downplaying it. They're not, acting as though it doesn't matter. But we've done, heart workups across the conference, and after any positive tests, unfortunately, we haven't had that many. Everyone gets, a heart workup, including EKG, echo, blood work monitoring for symptoms. Again, our medical experts advise us regularly. I'm not a doctor, but they again, they talk about all the things they're doing, and they've been talking about it. And this is a condition that fortunately isn't common. And in one of our head doctor has said, in the vast majority of cases, there is recovery. Now, obviously, again, there are some cases where there can be long-term, and even permanent complications, but that's rare. But the point is, their feeling is it's less likely that you're going to get it during competition. We have outstanding protocols in place. And the key point, one of the key points I've tried to make for quite some time, and I see Nick Saban made it recently, I know Trevor Lawrence did, I know others have, is that you're safer in our protocols than outside them. And what I mean by that is, I hate to call it, David, and Mark, a bubble. It's not a bubble per se. It's not like the NBA and maybe what MLS was doing, we're doing, but essentially, if you're turned loose and you're no longer playing, you're no longer in that protocol, you're not going to have the regular testing, which could be twice a week. It could, there could be antigen tests as well. We're not certain yet what we're going to do there, but we obviously have the one test a week protocol right now, and we're looking at the other. But we've been testing regularly, and some of our schools have been testing twice a week. The other issue is you're getting health screenings, you're getting all sorts of other things, you're getting sanitary facilities, hospital quality facilities in terms of sanitation, all sorts of other things. In addition, you have an incentive to really, not to do the things that 18 to 22-year-olds typically do, and they're not bad things. They're just things that you can't do during a pandemic if you want to, not obviously contract the disease. And you tend to be more careful because you really want to play. And our student athletes have shown they really want to play. So if you're no longer in those protocols and you contract the disease, you're not going to get tested the same way. You're not going to necessarily know you have it. If you're asymptomatic, the underlying conditions could then appear. You're not going to know. You may have problems that you wouldn't have had otherwise. And so I think in the end, why do we want to play? Well, we want to play because it means a lot to these student athletes. It's what they live for. It's what they came to college to do. It's important to them. It's important to their families, their communities. If we were hearing from parents that they didn't want to play, we would take that seriously, but that's not what we're hearing. So you have to reduce risk to an acceptable level, to what your board and your medical people think is an acceptable level. You can't eliminate risk. You can't eliminate risk in anything. You walk out on that football field, there's risk. You drive a car, there's risk. You do everything. There could be other kinds of things that you're susceptible to, whether it's diseases or other things, if you do certain activities. But you have to weigh that. And that's what we've tried to do. And our medical people, David, Mark, they would recommend shutting things down if they thought the risk what was too great. And again, weighing the relative risks of not playing versus playing, their feeling is, and I think Dr. Wolf from Duke, who's been talking, in the media, said the same thing. He's a highly respected, I think, epidemiologist. He said the same thing. Life goes on. We're in a pandemic, yes, but we're going to be in it for a while. We may not have a vaccine, and our feeling is it would be a mistake. When you do something, there's always a reaction. You don't do anything in a vacuum. The easier decision would be not to move forward, to just say, okay, we're washing our hands of it, no problem. We won't have any issues. We won't have liability. We won't have anything. That wouldn't necessarily be the right decision for our student athletes. Now, could things change down the road if we get new information? We're talking to our medical experts. Are talking to the Pac-12 and the Big 12 medical experts to see what prompted their decision, what is emergent, and right now what they've seen doesn't tell them that anything has changed in any significant way, and therefore we feel we have a path to move forward. And obviously with three of the P5 moving forward, it would have been, I've said it publicly a number of times, it would be hard if the A5, the P5, however you want to call them, A5 meaning autonomous 5, and obviously, as you know, we want to be in that group. We haven't really done much with that campaign right now in view of the pandemic. But the point is, if they move ahead, then we see a path to play. If they didn't, if none of them were playing, we would probably see a tough path forward. But that's really in a nutshell what we're trying to do right now and how we feel.
Mike, one of the things that we've seen is that we used to do in football and has been taken away because it was deemed unfair was essentially athletic dorms. And you talk about a bubble. Is it, and I thought all along that these need to come back. And if we put all the kids in the same dorm that are playing football and we give them online classes, and if we got to put tutors in there that are in the bubble as well, that there are ways inside the campus to make this easier. Has that been done anywhere? Because you talk about all the things that 18 to 22-year-olds do. If I have them in a dorm, I've got pretty good control. If they're living in apartments, I kind of have to take their word for it. What are the protocols for your conference as far as how the student athletes are going to be housed for football?
Yes, David, the conference doesn't mandate anything, but the schools are definitely looking at that, and they're looking at how they arrange roommates. They're looking at all sorts of things. They're taking social distancing and wearing masks, very seriously. And you're absolutely right. Isn't it ironic that we really tried for years to get rid of the notion of an athletic dorm? We wanted our students, essentially integrated into the college, environment and with other students. And the old days, obviously the bigger football powers did that. But yes, we're looking at that kind of thing, and there's all sorts of plans that schools are looking at. I can't tell you specifically what they're doing. One of the issues obviously is when students come back on campus, what's going to happen. I did hear that one of the SEC schools, I can't name the school, had 10,000 students come back, had a 0.6%, 1/6 of 1% of their students tested positive, which is obviously a relatively low number, and it was encouraging to see that. But obviously keeping our student athletes at this point safe means that obviously they've got to do whatever they can to social distance. And that doesn't mean that they can't be students. I mean, that's what they're there for. They are students. And that begs the question, it's a challenge for the chancellors and presidents to bring students back on campus. I don't think, David, that they're going to be bringing as many students back. There will be virtual learning. And even if you're back, there will be, virtual classes. But in terms of the dorm situation, our schools have looked at that, and they've looked at ways to, keep their student athletes, not in a perfect bubble, because again, they are students and they have to be, part of the campus environment. But again, there's also, they have really gotten, a strict education on, stay away from bars, large gatherings, parties, fraternity parties, that kind of thing, the things that have caused, outbreaks. And that's really important too, because again, they want to play. And if they're not in that environment and they're not playing, we think that becomes too a mental health issue, in the sense that some of them will get depressed, because again, it is, I'm not suggesting it's certain to happen, but we certainly would have to be prepared, because we know that they really want to play. And then are they going to be as careful if they're not competing? We would hope so, clearly, because we don't want anybody to contract it. But again, that's what we're dealing with right now. And yes, that's an interesting point too, because again, what you can't do what the NBA and MLS have done, but you can make it safer. And again, you also don't want, there's some complicated issues too, because you don't want special treatment in many respects. The students have to matter too, the regular students. But it is something that has been, talked about, and the kinds of things. It's funny. I haven't done a survey recently about exactly what the living conditions are, but I'll look into it, because it is something that's been talked about, and there are things they're doing. And just as practices, you'd be amazed at the different protocols for practices that would never have been in place otherwise, relative to social distancing, relative to team meetings, staying apart, staying away. It's something you have to do in this environment.
Talking with Mike Oresco, the commissioner of the AAC, and he joins us here on Miller and Moulton. You haven't, unless I missed it, you haven't made any changes to your schedule, right? You've got your 8 conference games, and then teams in the AAC can still schedule as many as 4 non-conference games, right?
Yes, although there have been some adjustments. We had 2 games, David, on week 0 that we've now moved into the season. One went to September 12th, one went to September 5. We have a few games on September 5 right now. We have some on September 12th, and then we have a couple of conference games on September 19th, and we begin our conference play in earnest September 26th. But we've lost a number of non-conference games. We never expected our teams to be able to play all 12. We gave them the opportunity. Believe it or not, we do have a couple right now who still have 12 games scheduled. We have some with 11. For example, Navy would like to play the Commander-in-Chief games, Air Force and Army, and also play BYU. That's the substitute for Notre Dame. But we don't have some of our teams are down literally to eight conference games. They've lost all their non-conference games. Some have 9. Some will try to replace them, and we only have a couple of P5 games left. We have UCF. It looks like Georgia Tech, UCF will happen, and also Tulsa, Oklahoma State. We're not sure about any others. There are a couple that are still hanging in the balance, but that's going to determine what we're doing. I was asked recently, do you plan to push back the season? Again, our medical people and our medical group has been meeting for months now regularly, and I talk offline also with the chair, Dr. Craig Stewart of Tulane, who's absolutely outstanding. And they talk to cardiologists, they talk to epidemiologists, they talk to a wide range of people. They don't feel there's any reason why we can't start on time. Now, a lot of people say, well, you've got to see what happens when students come back on campus. Yes, you do. But if we have problems, we'll stop. Games will be moved later. And if in fact you can play earlier, that means you get some games in when the weather's good, when you're playing outside, less chance of the virus spreading. As you get later into the season, we don't know whether we'll get another virus surge. I mean, no one knows. Obviously, I'm not a doctor, but I think I've heard, the virus likes cold, dry conditions. That's why you had outbreaks in, meat packing plants and that sort of thing. And that's why they worry about once the fall comes with flu season again. So, if you can get those games in and then you don't have problems, then why not try? But you definitely buy time if you move them later, but I'm not sure that, even though you're buying time to see what happens, you might have been able to play them. And again, you can pivot. You can make decisions. We had to make decisions on canceling games, David, Mark, on 3-4 days notice with hurricanes and other things. We've had, in Florida, of course, we've had hurricane issues. UCF lost games because of hurricanes and floods. And we made those decisions, very close to the game time. So again, if there are issues, and I think we're going to know. A lot of our students are coming back to their campuses now in the middle of August, late and a little bit later in August. We're going to have a pretty good idea. September 5th is still, roughly 3 weeks away.
And, my son's a student at one of your schools at East Carolina. I was just looking at stories, police raiding parties with 400 people at it. I hope he wasn't there, and I hope their football players weren't there. But, Mike, there's been a lot of talk on the outside, not from people on the inside of the sport, but boy, it's time for a college football commissioner. Mike, listening to your answer and talking to you, you're talking to your medical people, the SEC, the ACC, the Big 12 are talking to their medical people, and they're all on the same page. The Big 10 and Big 12 and Pac-12 are talking to their medical people. They've canceled a season. If there was ever a time for a college football commissioner, sure, this seems like it would be it. But Mike, is that just a pipe dream of sports talk show radio hosts? Because it certainly seems with what's going on, these conferences have not, even though they've communicated, they're very far apart on what they think. Is ultimately that good for the sport?
Well, again, we're dealing with college football, and there's fragmentation. That's a really good, David. That is an outstanding question. It goes to the heart of what's going on now. I don't know that what's happened in recent days is a great look for college football, for college sports. Is it a pipe dream to think that we can have a czar, a commissioner of college football? Probably. And the reason is the conferences seem to really cherish, their autonomy. And I use that term apart from the notion of the autonomy five, which means that those five can create certain kinds of legislation, which we can opt into. And we want to be part of that group because we think we're just like them in most respects. But the point is they like being able to chart one's own course. But you can see what happens in a situation like this when you're charting your own course. There is no consensus right now on the medical front. Was consensus the goal? I think it would be nice if we had it, but I think the goal has been to make sure everybody has the same information. Our medical people were concerned that they didn't want to have knowledge out there that they weren't aware of, and they didn't want others to have not to have knowledge that we were aware of. So they have been talking. Our medical chair is talking to the Pac-12 and the Big 12 to understand better what they're doing, and there have been conversations before, and there are conversations again with experts all around college football. But there hasn't been, as you said, there hadn't been a unified. We thought originally, okay, you're probably saying, well, where's the NCAA and all this? Well, obviously the NCAA does not, run college football per se, but early on, months ago, I thought we might get some kind of medical guidance, from the NCAA that we would all basically adopt, and it would include guidance from the CDC, the Presidential Task Force, others. And it was clear early on that we weren't going to get it. And that's when I established our medical task force. And that's when other conferences, around the time, most conferences were establishing medical task forces. And while there has been some cooperation, there hasn't been enough. And they do differ, in their opinions. They simply do. And you have to, ultimately, we're on our own. And we don't have the kind of overall leadership that, obviously you have in pro sports where you have a commissioner and you have a league. We just don't have that. And part of it is because college football a while ago, as you know, the history of it broke away, and we have a CFP, but we don't, again, there's no czar, there's no commissioner who is part of the college football playoff who runs FBS football. Somebody said, well, it's about time, we had that. I just don't think you're going to get it. I just think the reality of it is that the conference aren't going to give up, their autonomy. But in this particular case, we're on our own, and we have to show leadership ourselves. We have to do what we think is right. We take the best medical evidence, and we have to use our own judgment. The Big Ten, Pac-12 made a decision. We respect that, but we don't agree with those decisions. Now, again, they have unique circumstances. They've cited, medical concerns. Obviously the Pac-12 has, other issues, and they've talked about those out in California and some of their states. The Big Ten has cited some things that have happened there that cause them concern. But our medical people have looked at this very closely, and we trust them. And they're talking again to outside experts. They're not just relying on their internal people, and they're also they're talking to different kinds of doctors, epidemiologists, cardiologists, and they feel they're making the best judgments they possibly can. But yeah, there's a fragmentation that hasn't created a really good look for college sports right now. But I don't think that's going to change. The P5, and we wanted to be in that room, and I've talked about being in that room. And by the way, we've had a number of P5, G5. I hate that we're in the G5, but we've had those meetings pretty regularly recently, and we share information and we talk about what we're doing. The P5 we're meeting, I think, daily at one point, and everybody thought, well, they'll definitely arrive at a consensus. But, college football was once a very regional sport. It's become national because of the BCS and now the CFP, but it still has regional roots, and everybody has a different view of what they're doing and how they're going to do it. And everybody, puts together, nobody, I guess, ultimately decided to put together, at least among the P5, to put together a national medical panel that would advise everybody. Everybody wanted to go their own way. And I just suspect that's going to continue. And I know it causes problems, and it can create what looks like a dysfunctional situation where you have two conferences not playing and three right now, and us and a few G5 conferences deciding to play. I get that, but I don't honestly think it's going to change, at least in the short term.
Mike, thanks for your time. All the best to you, your family, and your staff within the AAC. That everybody stay safe and healthy, and hopefully that you can pull this off. And if so, we'll talk down the road.
These were really good questions. David, Mark, always great to talk to you. Please say hi to Gary Danielson for me, David. And again, thanks for having me. Again, we have a tough path ahead. We're trying to make the right decisions. This is a tough time for everyone. But I think Condoleezza Rice talked to the conference commissioners at one point a while back and said, if you're doing things for the right reasons, and we think we are, because health and safety have been our primary focus from the beginning. If you do things for the right reasons, you have a much better chance to arrive at good policy decisions. And that's obviously what we're trying to do. And we can't forget the student athletes, really, their health and well-being is the entire focus here. And I appreciate, again, having a chance to talk to you. I hope you and your families and everybody in the community, stay safe and healthy and stay well. Thanks again.
Mike Oresco, the commissioner of the AAC, joining us here on Miller and Moulton. The AAC, the focus of our poll question on the show on this day. You can always vote at millerandmoulton.com, that Mark Miller, or the David Moulton on Twitter. The question, with no Pac-12 and Big Ten football this year, should the AAC champion get a spot in the college football playoff? So far, 74% of you saying yes. I am one of the 74%. And breaking news, lightning bolt from the sky. Who else is part of the 74%? Mark Miller.
I am. This year, we already determined the SEC champion. I don't need another SEC team in there. And hell, we know the Big 12 team isn't going to win a game in the playoff because the Big 12 team doesn't win a game in the playoff. Give me somebody new.
The answers are yes, no, or never. Mark would normally be a never.
Always. I've always been a never, and I'm a yes.
That's our poll question. MillerandMoulton.com, that Mark Miller, the David Moulton on Twitter. Gary Sharp from Omaha. We will take the pulse of Nebraska. And are they serious about leaving the Big Ten? Because they don't seem to be backing down after the Big Ten commissioner drew a line in the sand. We'll talk to Gary Sharp next. Miller and Moulton, thanks for being with us. Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio.
Hey, I got to be honest, chat room. And I just typed it. Bitch all you want. He is the conference commissioner for one of the 6 biggest conferences in the country, and he just gave us 25 flipping minutes.
He does come on the show, folks.
I mean, come on now. I get that you might bitch about Seth because Seth can be Seth. But this is Mike Oresco. This is one of the most dialed-in sports people in the country. Come on now. So he gives long answers. Less questions I get to ask. It's not a bad thing.
Would we have preferred to ask 6, 7, or 8 questions instead of 4? Absolutely. But, hey, listen. When a conference commissioner agrees to come on the show, we put him on the air.
And he runs the interview, for the record. Not us.
Try the new spicy Western bacon cheeseburger at Hardee's.
The questions are pretty simple, too. He just decided to run with them.
And, Miller and Moulton fans given me 6 pages worth of MIT info before that he wants me to ask, breaking down racial barriers of COVID. He answered all the health questions. He answered them with great detail. I don't know what else you want.
I know, so much detail that many of you are complaining.
Right, so much detail that I made a pot of coffee during that interview.
Participating Hardee's restaurants. Price and participation may vary.
Are you ready to take your game and athletic training to the next level? Looking to improve your speed, posture, endurance, conditioning, and mental training for tennis or any sport? Reach your star potential at Academia Sanchez Casal, Florida, and Naples. Operated by tennis superstars. Olympic silver medalist Emilio Sanchez and Arantxa Sanchez, the former world champ with 14 Grand Slam titles. You won't get this level of training.
Let me know when we're at a minute, Giro, please.
Expanded to include highly stylized off-court hydro pool programs for ages 10 and up. World-class athletic trainer and founder of Hydro
Hydroathletics, Stephen DeViti, will coach you or your child through a unique program of high-intensity, low-impact, results-driven hydroathletic training using the latest in resistance technology and equipment. Safely in compliance with CDC guidelines. Group or one-on-one sessions. Short and long-term programs for beginners through elite professional athletes of any sport. Step up your game.
I've done a lot of interviewing. My goal is to ask the fewest questions I can to get the most information. Well, that's never a problem. I love the fact he knows both of our names. He does. We were talking to him for a minute and a half before he came on. He knows both of our names.
And I made a point to make sure that he knew mine.
And new membership pricing starts as low as $99. Call 239-945-1664.
There are people, and I obviously don't hear it, and you don't hear it.
I do. I do hear it.
We sound alike.
I think we sound similar. I don't think we sound alike, and I could get how someone who has never talked to us would have that happen. But I find it interesting when someone's on for the 85th time that they still do it. But that's, hey, again, how much did we pay to have Mike Oresco on the show today?
Right. As Don Rickles said on Letterman.
How much you pay for those
How
tickets?
much you pay to get in here?
Right.
It's free, right? That's a funny joke. Of course, that's a joke you can't tell today. But that's
Well, I can't. I was going to say that in Twitter, but some of these folks actually pay. So,
right? No, I know.
Meanwhile, it's $5 a month. They're still paying, so I couldn't really. I was going to go with that line. Don't kid yourself.
Certified mechanics, and they're experts in the entire air conditioning system. Don't fall for the sales scams and keep these scammers out of your attics.
Good morning.
Good morning, Gary. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I am doing very well. Mark and David here. How are things in the the very wild, crazy land of Nebraska, where you're trying to blow up college football?
Well, it's going to be a surreal fall, that's for sure.
Holy cow! We're going on here in about 15 seconds, Gary. As always, thank you.
Yeah, thank you,
appreciate
Gary.
it.
Here we go.
Now back to Miller and Moulton.
All right, now we're getting somewhere.
This is Miller and Moulton.
You're live.
"28 minutes before the hour. Miller and Moulton, Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio, streaming Miller and Moulton YouTube channel and the Miller and Moulton Twitch.tv channel. The good, the bad, and the ugly coming up in roughly 20 minutes. It's a pleasure to catch up with a gentleman who called the 239 home for more than a bit. He is the host of the Gary Sharp Show on 1620 The Zone in Omaha, and he's also does play-by-play for Omaha men's basketball, and he does both very well. He's Gary Sharp. You can follow Gary on Twitter at Gary Sharp 1620. Gary, top of the morning to you. David and Mark, how you been? Everybody healthy?
Everybody's healthy. Great to hear you guys. David, I'm glad you're back. Mark, as always, enjoy your work. What a weird week. What a weird 5 months. And, I was just telling John what a surreal fall it could be, will be around here and in every other Big Ten city.
Gary, on the level of how pissed off people in Nebraska are right now, is this Spinal Tap, do these go to 11? I mean, is that where we're at right now?
Oh, hey, Mark, we're higher than 11. I mean, we got people calling Desmond Howard a moron after his appearance yesterday. People are outraged. It's actually kind of interesting. I think this is a fan base that's been kind of divided for 20 years. They keep living in the past and hoping for glory, and it's very divided. I think this is something that has unified them. But just like the head coach who spoke publicly on Monday and then the statement that was released on Tuesday, I think the fan base feels the same way. The commissioner didn't explain enough to convince you that this was absolutely the right timing and the right thing to do. And we can agree that if you look at it, maybe it's the right thing to do. But the timing, I think, really has Nebraska off. But people are upset because they wanted an opportunity and they thought that the league went too early. And I think you're also going to find out that the league's communication with their members wasn't that good. And that's one of the reasons why Nebraska is especially upset and have kind of gone silent the last couple of days while all this speculation about them leaving the Big Ten or playing games continues to boil.
Well, Gary, that's obviously the big question because there was stuff that went down over 10 years ago, which was the breaking point for Nebraska with the Big 12, in which they said, you know what, we're not willing to stay if this is how you're going to conduct business. Now, the Big 10's more lucrative than the Big 12, but it's also not where Nebraska's roots are. And we all know that money is usually the overriding factor, but sports is a very passionate thing. Do you believe that the university and its fan base would be willing to accept less money to go back to its roots?
I don't think so. Well, the fan base right now would say yes. I think it would be a short-sighted, terrible idea. If you think about it, Nebraska, since they've been in the Big Ten when it comes to football, has not held up their end of the bargain. So they don't have a seat at the front of the table. And that's on them. But they're still a good brand, but they're a little bit, they're the Western, they're the San Diego of the Big Ten Conference. But there's $52 million that show up in their checking account every year from the Big Ten. I think it would be very short-sighted, a bad decision in a fit of rage to try and look outside of the Big Ten because you're not going back to the Big 12. The Big 12 still has Texas. That's why you left. I'm glad you brought up the identity. I went to school there. I lived here for a majority of my life. As you mentioned, I lived in Fort Myers. So I know the passion of football in the state of Florida and the passion of football in this state. It's, in the Big Ten, we think of academics. You have your major brands like Ohio State and Michigan and Penn State, but it's more academics. Where in the South, in the SEC, as you guys both know very well, it means more. And that's kind of what Nebraska's identity is. Nebraska actually kind of is more in line with an SEC school than they are with the Big Ten, but yet the Big Ten is more in line with the Ivy League than anything else, which is, that kind of rubs Nebraska the wrong way. But I think they'll let this settle down. They'll realize that they're in a conference that usually preaches unity, that's got to bring people together, and they will stay in the Big Ten. I don't believe that they are looking to leave. I think it would be a very poor decision.
I think it'd be suicide, Gary. I think it would be suicide because, one, there's no guarantee that the Big 12 takes him. And two, if they go to the Big 12, it's the same damn thing they had before, that Texas and Oklahoma run things there. So to take a pay cut, to get treated actually worse than you get treated in the Big Ten. As much as they don't like how they're being treated in the Big Ten, they're now a full and equal member getting that $50 million check. And I can't see how Nebraska's athletic department is going to find itself going forward positively without that money. Do you?
No, you're absolutely right, Mark. I mean, independent life isn't working out. Ask UConn. It works out for really one school. They're not going to leave the Big Ten. I think this is where we're finding out about the Big Ten. When you had Jim Delaney, who was a fantastic commissioner, and he was a power broker, he got everybody on the same page. Even if they disagreed with any decision he was making. Now, he never had to make a decision during a pandemic like Kevin Warren has had. But the league would discuss things behind closed doors. They'd come out with a public statement, and everybody would be unified, even if you didn't like it. I think that's where Nebraska's showing their disappointment. I'm glad that Nebraska's disappointed. They were told when they brought kids back to school that June 1, if you do this and this, and Nebraska went above and beyond with their testing protocol and everything they were doing to put together a little de facto bubble, that they would get an opportunity. And I think Nebraska understands the situation that, at the end of the day, it may not be safe to play. But why now? Why does the Big Ten have to go first to say we're playing conference only? Why do they have to be first to say we're not playing? And the other Power 5 conferences outside of the Pac-12 are going, whoa, this kind of caught us off guard. So I think Nebraska is expressing their disappointment. They're just a decade into the Big Ten, and they don't get that the Big Ten is supposed to be unified. But it's not just Nebraska. Nebraska got hammered yesterday, guys, nationally. But did anybody see what Ryan Day said? Ryan Day essentially said the same thing Scott Frost was until his athletic director later in the day came out and said, no, fall football in 2020 is not doable. We're going to look to the spring. So it's a conference that right now is going to need a little bit of reaching out and bringing people together.
He's Gary Sharp, host of the Gary Sharp Show, middays on 1620 The Zone. He also does play-by-play for Omaha men's basketball. Follow Gary on Twitter at Gary Sharp 1620. If they would have played this fall, how good is Nebraska at this point in time? How much headway has Scott Frost made? Because obviously he made great headway in a very short period of time at UCF. We understand Nebraska was every bit the overhaul that UCF was when he inherited it. But how much headway has he made?
They would be if David. They would be if they played their schedule that was given out, by the way, a week ago yesterday. I think they would be about 5-5 or 6-4. It's his third year. The program has been for 3 straight years under 500. Haven't gone to a bowl game. I think he underestimated the strength of the Big Ten, and I think he also underestimated kind of where Nebraska football was in terms of what the roster looked like. And they've done a lot of cleaning in 2 years of this roster, and I think he finally has it in a spot where he's got talent that can win the West, not beat Ohio State on the other side, but win the West. And it's young talent that they really wanted to see this year, where next year they were kind of focusing on the year to make a Minnesota year 3 jump, even though it'd be year 4 of Scott Frost. I think he's got the culture in the right place. He's got good players. He's recruiting well. He's got a good staff, made some changes in the offseason. I think that's another thing, the frustration, is they really want this season because they feel like they're developing and they've got the right players in place that they can get them on the field. But, that's another uncomfortable thing with all the Big Ten schools is if you don't play in the spring, and I think that's a farce of playing spring football. I don't know how you can ask student athletes to play in the spring without a plan. You lose a year of development, and what does that do to your program? I think 14 coaches in this league are going to be asking the same question.
And, Jeff Brom just came up with a really interesting proposal for spring football that I just came out in the last few minutes that at least has some thought. The one thing that I'm most worried about is it doesn't seem like Gary, was there a plan? I mean, does it look to you like there was a plan B? Because as you talked about, we had Bobby Carpenter on earlier, and you guys both said damn near the same thing. June 1, testing. Everybody did everything right. Everybody did what they were supposed to do, and then the rug's been pulled out from under these teams. It looks from the outside then, Gary, that they had this plan, and things weren't going the way they wanted to, and there was no plan B. Was there?
No, I don't think there was. And I think, Mark and David, I think this decision was made well before Tuesday. I think, there's the medical part, which is so confusing. And I've said this, what's going on in college football kind of mirrors what's going on in America for the last 5-6 months. It's chaos. We don't have leadership. We got mixed messages. You turn left, that's your flavor of the day. You turn right, that's your flavor of the day. When you look at medical opinions that are advising the SEC, the ACC, and compared to the ones that are advising the Big Ten, it came down to, I think there's a lot of liability in this. When the NCAA said, hey, you can't have those COVID waivers, I think some president said, man, I don't want somebody sitting in my office with a client and they're preparing to sue me. That factored in. If you're going to make a decision like this, you've got to have a plan B, because you say, hey, we're looking at spring football, and this is what it's going to look like. You can't just cancel a season, not be able to explain thoroughly why you did it, and then you go, but this is the alternative. We're going to do spring football. This is when it'll start. They didn't have a plan B, and it's crazy to think that fall football was not on the table until Monday night. If you're going to make a decision, you got to have answers for student athletes, coaches, and athletic directors, fans, because right now there are a lot more questions than there were answers. That's, unfortunately, a first-year commissioner trying to deal with this did not do a very good job.
Gary, quickly, how much money is Nebraska going to lose, and what do you think the athletic department looks like a year from now? I mean, we've seen Stanford dropped 11 sports before the football season got canceled, and they've got a $27 billion endowment. I mean, can Nebraska handle this?
It's going to be difficult. They'll lose about $120 million. The city of Lincoln is projected to lose around $95 million off of 7 to 8 football Saturdays. Nebraska has, like everybody else, has taken pay cuts with their upper-level administrators and coaches. They also have gone through the athletic department, and they had a long list of layoffs about a month ago. I think the last resort here is to drop sports, but I can't imagine if you are a male playing a Olympic sport at Nebraska or any other Power 5 school, you're real comfortable today, because that's the reality of the situation is those sports might have to be cut. I think a year from now, college athletics is going to look completely different. And you know what? 5-10 years from now, we may not be talking about the Big Ten. We need to be talking about a Power 5 landscape across the country with the regionalized conferences. But Nebraska, like everybody else, is going to suffer. And I think you see that in also the emotion of, hey, we want to play. We want to get on the field. We want to see if we can get any kind of money at all this year. I think you're going to go a couple more days, and I think this will be quieted here in Nebraska. In Nebraska will go back into the Big Ten, and they will get ready for spring. Or I think the next college football game that Nebraska plays will be in Ireland in August of 2021 against Illinois.
Wow. Absolutely crazy times. Gary, as always, we thank you for your time. We appreciate it. We wish you and your family all the best. And I'd love to say we'll talk in the fall about Nebraska football, but I guess that's not going to happen.
Hey, Gary, I'll tell you what, 10 seconds.
All those weddings that you get to use an excuse for, now I got to go to, guys.
They'll all be on Zoom, seconds. Gary. Don't worry.
Our poll question today. Wait, Gary, can you hear me? No, guess not. Because I'm curious, and elsewhere, I would love for people who are listening to the show and voting in our poll question today, if you have friends from other regions, all right, at some point in time, ask them the poll question. And the poll question, for those that don't know, is with no Pac-12 and Big Ten football, would you put the AAC champion in the playoff this year? And Mark, who doesn't think the AAC champion ever belongs in the playoff and has said so even the last couple years when UCF had the 2-year unbeaten string in regular season play, said, hey, we're going to put 2 SEC teams in, a Big 12 team and an ACC team? I mean, why? In theory, the SEC teams have played one another in Atlanta 2 weeks earlier. Why do we need to see them again? And so even Mark is like, yeah, put the AAC champion in this time. Put him in as the 4 seed. Let's go. Let's play it. And I'm wondering if in other parts of the country, it's why I think, we got a long way to go whether or not we can pull this off. But Mark, we keep talking about the damage that could be done to the Big Ten and the Pac-12. What could this do for the AAC? Because once they get in, if they could get in the playoff, and if they have a good showing, somebody will go, well, hell, they perform just as well as
Oklahoma. That's it, David. That's the team. I'm with you.
If they could get in and play a representative game, and then you go, well, hell, they've done as well as the Big 12 and the Pac-12 has in this thing.
Now, we didn't ask Mike Oresco a lot of questions, but he gave us a lot of information. And I think he said this more than the number of questions David and I asked. We want a seat at that table. We want to be part of the P5, not the group of 5. And get into that tournament. Boy, David, that would go a long way to get a seat at that table.
Miller and Moulton. Poll question, by the way, vote at millermoulton.com. That Mark Miller, the David Moulton on Twitter. The good, the bad, and the ugly. To wrap things up, brought to you by a sponsor yet to be figured out that no longer exists.
Got
You're
it.
on Southwest
Got
Florida,
it.
do you?
Oh, yeah.
Look at you, all excited. I mean, folks, just come back after the break just to find out who the sponsor is. Here on Miller and Moulton, Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio.
Welcome to the program.
This is the Dan Patrick Show.
I don't know if we're going to see a big name opt out, and that would mean Trevor Lawrence or Justin Fields at Ohio State. If you've already cemented your status as a top pick, are you going to stay? Are you going to risk this? The next few weeks are going to be interesting as players decide on their future, and teams try to get ready for a very, very unusual season.
Dan Patrick. The Dan Patrick Show. Weekdays at 9 a.m. on Southwest Florida's Fox Sports Radio and FoxSportsFM.com.
Let's face it, these are stressful times. New routines, the constant bombardment of bad news, and trying to keep you and your family safe all the time. It's Frank for Center for Men's Health. During these stressful times, your mood is so critical, and nothing's more important to a guy's mood than testosterone. The single greatest issue for guys with low T is mood, and the single greatest change for men that get low T care is a greatly improved mood. Many are grumpy when they start, and most can't believe how much their mood improves once they get treated. And everything improves once your mood improves. Feel the difference C4MH.com can make in your life. I've been a patient of C4MH.com for a couple of years, and recently I've lost 20 pounds because now I have the energy to work out from home. And that'll put you in a good mood, too. C4MH.com's express treatment plan is convenient, affordable, and above all, safe. And with locations all up and down West Florida, there's one near you right now. Find out more. Go to C4MH.com.
You should be driving a Kia from Galliana. Galliana Kia.
Why pay more for a used car or truck when Galliana Kia in Fort Myers can sell you a new car for less? 2020 Kia Forte LXS lease, just $49 per month. That's right, a new car for just $49 per month. 2020 Kia Rio, just $13,990. Yes, $13,990.
I don't know if it's one of you guys in the chat room that keeps texting me Clay Travis quotes, but I'll say it to all of you. He's a really smart guy. He does a show the way he wants to do it. We are on a cross from him. So there's never going to be a point that we're going to take a Clay Travis quote and use it as a show topic on our show. It's just not going to happen. Doesn't make any sense for David and I. So while I appreciate the 10 cut and paste Clay Travis quotes a day, they're not going to make the show. And if you're just giving them for me to read, I follow him on Twitter. He's a bright guy. He's lined himself up in a certain way, and he's doing a certain thing. And he's been very strong with that for a while. It got him Donald Trump on the show. Maybe the best sports talk show get ever.
Crispy bacon and onion rings and topped with tangy barbecue sauce. But we added spicy jalapenos and melty pepper jack cheese. We took a burger that was already delicious and spiced it up. Why are we using this whip crack to explain it? Because jalapenos sound like this. Try the new spicy Western bacon
Fort
cheeseburger
Adventure?
at Hardee's.
I don't think I ever heard of Fort
No, I
Adventure.
think he's thinking foot fan is what he's trying. That's probably a spell. That's probably a spell thing.
42 states on charges of bringing a sweat to the brow of breakfast lovers.
Oh, Fort Adventure.
No, Fort Adventure.
Never
a
even
shout
heard
out
of
with
it.
No longer existing places, right? A better Greenwells with no cards.
Spicy jalapenos.
Well,
And if you're feeling extra
tough to
wild,
then say it's a
you can
better
get it all wrapped
Greenwells
up
if it
in a
doesn't have
burrito.
cards.
The Southwest
Okay,
omelet,
but
biscuit, and burrito are back.
I never heard of it.
Feed your
Where was it?
Limited time only at participating Hardee's restaurants.
Trenton, where was it? When did it go away? Mark and I have both been here for over 20 years.
It doesn't mean it wasn't here when I first moved here. But I've been coming down here for 47 years. And I literally, or 46. My first trip here, I was 5. Okay. Yeah, and I. What was the fake? I don't know if you've been here this long, Trenton. What was the before we actually had strip joints in Fort Myers? What was the fake? You had to wear pasty strip joint that was on McGregor by the dance parking lot in there. Remember bringing a buddy from Marco there after his girlfriend dumped him when I was like 20.
And resistance technology and equipment, safely in compliance with CDC guidelines. Group or one-on-one sessions, short and long-term programs for beginners through elite professional athletes of any sport. Step up your game and enroll now. Find Stephen DeViti Hydro Athletics.
So I had to watch Bill Maher last night, David, after Trump went after him.
Right.
It's
funny.
It's the worst
funny.
thing ever happened to anybody ever.
Funny.
Funny.
Right.
This is Mark Miller's Good, Bad, and Ugly on Fox Sports Radio.
You're live.
And today's Good, Bad, and Ugly brought to you by St. George the Dragon in Naples, where lawyers and other high-powered Naples people have been bringing their girlfriends for lunch and happy hour for over 20 years. St. George the Dragon in Naples. If you're looking to cheat on your wife, it's the darkest restaurant in town. For the good today, we go to Virginia, where Herbert Scruggs was waiting for his mom. Mom was doing some grocery shopping at the Food Lion, and he just had enough waiting, so went and got himself a scratcher. And that scratcher was good for $200,000.
Wow.
So he's trying to figure out what to do with the money because the wind is still sinking in. He said, it hasn't hit me yet. I'm going to give you a little advice. Pay for mom's groceries.
Yeah. And put the rest in the bank.
For the bad, we go to Orlando, where a teenager was accidentally locked inside a showroom safe at a gun range. Investigator says she walked inside the display and the door closed behind her. Firefighters had to use hydraulic extraction tools to breach the door after the manufacturer's suggestions and the fail-safe system failed. Here's the thing, David. When it says fail-safe, it's not supposed to fail.
No. In fact, I mean, it's bold advertising. This thing will not fail.
Right. The teen was not injured, but apparently scared out of her mind, according to Orlando Fire District Chief J.J. White. We were able to tell the minor what we were doing from the outside and had them back away as far as possible from our entry point. And finally, the ugly, we go to New Jersey, where it isn't COVID and social distancing that's really keeping people away from the beaches these days. Apparently it's poop, David. The New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection has placed no less than 6 beaches under swimming advisories after the water samples showed high level of fecal bacteria. So if you want to swim in poop, New Jersey, you got a problem with that?
I grew up with it. We had a couple of summers there in the mid to late 70s.
If it wasn't needles, it's poop. New Jersey beaches. Come visit. Dump.
And the Jersey Shore is great, too. But,
if you say so. I'll take 6 million other shores than the Jersey Shore.
Well, the problem is too many states have been allowed to dump their garbage too many miles offshore, and then eventually, it takes quite a few years, but eventually, some of it starts showing up again. It's like, okay, great, thanks.
And that is the good, the bad, and the ugly, brought to you by St. George the Dragon in Naples, your place to take the woman you don't want your wife to find out about because no one can see you when you're inside.
We got a note in the Twitch chat room from someone that said it was so dark you couldn't see your entree.
And it was for years regarded as the restaurant in Naples. Anybody that's old enough to remember, St. George the Dragon, you had to wear a jacket in there. It was a high-brow place.
Right.
Even for Naples back then. But the darkness, I mean, that was the old school steakhouse where you couldn't see the booth. You couldn't see the person across from you in the booth, let alone who was on the other side of the restaurant. That's a bar.
So they wouldn't put the little candle on the table, create the ambiance there, if for no other reason to be able to read the menu. Poll question: with no Pac-12, no Big Ten football this year, should the AAC champion get into the college football playoff? And 76% of you are like, absolutely, let them in. 24% of you say no. I do like the fact that the no's are divided exactly in half. Half of the no's are no. Half of the no's are never. MillerandMoulton.com, that Mark Miller, the David Moulton on Twitter to vote in our poll question.
Pretty good little show today.
Right.
Our
poll question brought to you by Rheingold Extra Dry.
The poll question was the Reef, but I like you throwing Rheingold in there as well. No problem. The Reef, where you can get a Rheingold on draft. Maybe not. They're both done. Well so are we. Miller and Moulton. Dan Patrick's next.
All right, you guys have a good day. We'll be here tomorrow again.
Sounds good. Talk to you then.
Thank you, Jiro.
David, I'm ending this because I got to get some stuff done before our little meeting.
Oh yeah, and apparently this is a video thing. I got a half hour to figure it out.